welcome to the final episode of People Are Terrible of 2019, you guys. We are wrapping up a decade. We're wrapping up quite a few podcasts under our belt at this time as well.
We have an entire season under our belt.
We do, absolutely. And you and I met through the shared movie space, and though People Are Terrible has tended to go away from that for a large chunk of it, we still always love an opportunity to talk about movies.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think this all started just because we were two nerds who like to talk about movies.
Yeah, and it evolved, but we do like to bring it back to that every once in a while. And being that we are rounding out a decade, we figured we wanted to share with you guys our top. Well, we really couldn't decide on our top what list, so we settled on our top 20. However, both of us have some honorable mentions. We've both got well over 20 movies, so we're just going to kind of go through the top couple relatively fast, and as we get closer to our number ones and all of that stuff, we're going to kind of lean into them just a little bit more. Do you have any sort of prerequisites when you were coming up with this list? Did you set or define any kind of rules for yourself?
No documentaries was my one rule.
No documentaries is on mine as well.
And then that was kind of it. And then from there was just whatever spoke to me and what movies that I thought about long after they were done.
Okay.
It is kind of where I broke mine down. Because to me that's the greatest thing about art. And then getting it down to that top 20 was pretty hard. What did you end up with total on your list? I have 50.
I've got 20, 25, and about 10. Yeah, so I'm about 55, something like that.
Okay, cool. So we can run through the bottom real quick.
Yeah, most definitely. So mine was, just to make it even more specific for me, I say no franchises, no remakes, reboots, or sequels. There's going to be one huge cheat in this list on mine, but no documentaries and one entry per director. The reason I say that is because my
there's
top
a director
10,
who shows up five times.
I'm with you. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I had to reconcile that, and I had to be like, all right, I'm going to find one from this guy that I feel like really encapsulates what it is about this filmmaker that I like so much. And I don't want to bury the lead, but I definitely had that come up in my thought process. And then of course Quentin Tarantino's. There's some of these directors I could have almost filled my entire list with, but I figured just for the sake of like versatility and giving you guys that are watching and listening something a little off the beaten path to maybe seek out was a big part of my ideas. So when I say no franchises, that means I'm not going to be talking about a lot of superhero movies. There are tons that I loved, but in another way, I could have done if I was including your Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would probably be very heavily weighted that direction, or Into the Spider-Verse, your Star Wars movies. Anyways, the point is, while those movies are all fantastic, they're all really enjoyable, and you can go back and revisit them, they're spectacle. You guys already know about all of them, so I just figured I would go with the more film direction with my list.
I'm very excited to hear what you have to say because I was expecting to hear some Marvel on yours and some, like larger films.
Yeah, for sure.
Mine has a mixture of there's no Marvel, but like comic book movies. There's 2 comic book movies in all 50 that I thought were deserving.
Oh wow, wow! I wonder what they are.
So, but so mine's a mixture of just anything that spoke to me.
All right, so let's go ahead. So this entire episode of People Are Terrible is going to be a huge discussion on movies. The disclaimer needs to be stated. There's no fucking way I could have seen all the movies in the past 10 years. I have not seen 1,000% more than I have seen. So if it doesn't show up on my list and you feel like it should, let me know down in the comments section. I'm always looking for suggestions and movies that resonate with you. So...
and there's also the chance that we saw it and just didn't like it.
That's all. Yes, okay, very fair. So if it doesn't come up, let us know. I'll either let you know that I hadn't seen it or why it is that it didn't go ahead and make the cut. And that's kind of the thing, is everybody has dramatically different tastes. And for me, it's very hard to quantify and rank art. And I know that, like, I don't want to deconstruct the entire thing that we're doing or undermine the concept of list, because it gives us an opportunity to talk about movies. But it's so hard for me to compare movies in this category with movies in that category.
I agree.
And so, anyways, this is subjective. It's subject to change. But we'll go ahead and kick off some honorable mentions. Caleb, give me one of your first honorable mentions.
Prometheus. So I actually love Prometheus. I think it was like a bold take for the series. I kind of sad that we never got Prometheus 2 and that we got Covenant, which was this weird appeasing fans trying to make it an alien movie. But I thought Prometheus was an interesting start to a franchise that unfortunately we'll never see the end of. But Ridley Scott, it felt like old school Ridley Scott. And although it's nothing that like it's the reason it's number 50 and not 1, but I just really enjoyed aesthetically where he was going with it and story wise.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Prometheus is to the Alien franchise what Rise of Skywalker is to the Star Wars franchise. No, excuse me. Let me try that again. Alien Covenant is to the Alien franchise what Rise of Skywalker is to the Star Wars franchise. Like they really wanted to give the fans what they wanted, for better or worse. But I love Prometheus. The set design, the, like you said, the aesthetic. There's so many things to appreciate about it. It didn't quite make my honorable mention list, but I am a big fan. My first one that I came up with for my honorable mention is BlacKkKlansman. This is a really fun and crowd-pleasing movie. It's directed by Spike Lee, and I find that like it's a really accessible and funny way to deal with some kind of heavy themes and issues. And of all of Spike Lee's movies, and I do like a lot of them, I feel like this is the most accessible to mainstream audiences. So BlacKkKlansman has earned a spot on my list.
That's the one I still need to see. My next one is The Witch.
Okay.
By Robert Eggers. I really, really enjoyed this film. It's to me kind of, for me, what I felt like Hereditary was praised as, like this really bizarre, well shot, slow paced film that I appreciated more after I turned it off, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And while I really, really enjoyed The Witch, I'm sticking to my rule of one entry per director, The Lighthouse just happened to edge that one out for me.
Seen it.
This filmmaker, guys, I'm telling you, he is one to keep an eye out on, because both of the films that he has done have been so specific and able to immerse you in this time, in this place, and in this environment. I should say right now, like, a lot of people love a good story. Story isn't everything to me. If it's a great technical exercise, if it's stylistic, if it's got atmosphere, there's a lot of things, good performances. There's a lot of things that matter to me that I take into consideration other than just story. And I feel like you guys will see that motif kind of coming up again. But what I feel like Joel Eggers does very well is put you in a very uncomfortable, intimate situation and explores the way that we as human beings like kind of relate with each other.
I agree. I feel like you'll see a lot of this on my list. A lot of these aren't story films. You know, it's not like, oh, you're just going to be blown away by the story. It's more atmosphere, technique, acting. Those type of things are really would speak to me.
Yeah. All right. What's your next one?
Well, what's yours? I just did The Witch.
And I did
The
Lighthouse. Yep.
Oh, Ingrid Goes West.
That's a great movie. I got it on mine as well. That is like a horror movie for the modern digital age. God, dude, the performances are so good, and you're able to like Ashley Olsen, Elizabeth Olsen, and kind of just like think she's aloof and crazy at the same time. I really like that movie. It's very good.
Too.
It's on
like,
Hulu.
I feel like it's like a sleeper that a lot of people need to be aware of, because it is such a good parody of the social media generation that it really spoke to me. I cannot think of his name, but Ice Cube's son is hilarious in it. And I can't rave enough about this movie, and I feel like not enough people have seen it.
Yeah, it's funny and it's dark, and it's very cool for you guys that haven't had a chance to check it out. It's on Hulu. Highly recommend it. It's probably Aubrey Plaza's best performance, and she's a psycho bitch that you're also able to like really feel for and empathize with at certain times. So I like it for that. This was tough to decide whether I was going to put it in my top 20 or not because it was such a singular and unique film going experience. And as far as technical exercise, I feel like there's so many things that are strong and very specific to this movie. It is essentially a silent film. That's not really a silent film, but A Quiet Place is one of the best horror movies to come out in the past decade. And while it's not one that merits revisits to me as much as some of the other movies on this list, I do feel like going and seeing it in the theater was an experience unlike anything else that I'd had before, and all the performances are great. John Krasinski nails it out of the park as a director.
It's funny. That's actually my next one. So you
Oh,
hit
good.
it right on. Yeah. So I agree. This is a movie that I feel like I've seen it 3 times now, twice in theaters. I feel like the theater experience is the way to see this, much like some of the other films on this list. I feel like, honestly, I feel like it gets worse after every viewing, not better.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But it is still top tier horror.
Mm-hmm.
My next one is my next one would have been A Quiet Place, but my next one is The Voices, starring Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
I love this film.
What a fucked up movie. For you guys that haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking this one out.
It's just a different film. It's a comedy. I would say a horror comedy, dark comedy.
Sure.
I feel like Ryan Reynolds sometimes does not get his recognition as an actual actor. I think he's actually a pretty solid actor. And instead of, it's just nice to see him in a little bit of a different role, even though he still has some Ryan Reynolds moments. It's one of those ones I highly suggest just kind of checking out if you have the time.
Yeah, like I feel like Buried is a really good showcase of Ryan Reynolds' acting talents, and I feel like Voices is just like so subversive and not what you're expecting when you go into it. When the coin drops, it totally changes the way that you view the movie. I was like, holy fuck.
I love this film. It's another film that I feel like no one besides you and me has seen.
So my next one is this is a double whammy. It's Panos Cosmatos, 2 films, Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow. I guess they're horror movies. They're very much a meditation on, they're like a fever dream of what you remember seeing horror movies from the 80s or science fiction movies from the 80s, but like you can never like Google and find them. They're like those lost VHS weird fucking movies that like, it's almost like they never happened. They only happened in our mind, but these movies are so atmospheric and so, surrealist, and the scoring and the synthesizer and the way that he plays with light and color and sound. This guy has got a singular vision, and there's nobody else out there making movies like him.
I've only seen Mandy, but man, Mandy is one of those films I feel like if you hate it, it is perfectly acceptable. If you think it's the greatest film ever, it's perfectly acceptable. It's that type of film.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it didn't make my top list, but I just wanted to point it out to you guys. If you're in the mood to fucking just check out something weird, I highly recommend this guy's movies.
Yeah, I agree. Now my next one is something that is kind of a weird indie film called The Brass Teapot.
Okay.
The Brass Teapot, I don't know if you've seen it.
It's kind of like The Monkey Paw, right?
Yes, it's where these people have to hurt themselves in order, and money comes out of a teapot.
I gotta see this.
It's a weird, quirky comedy indie film that has some really good performances in it. It kind of does the thing where it's comedy, then it gets real dark, then it's comedy, and I just feel like it's a fresh, fun film that literally no one has seen. Only reason I saw this is my brother begged me to watch it, and I watched it and was blown away.
Who's in it?
I cannot think of this kid's name. Let me double check. So Juno Temple and Michael Argonauts, whatever his name is.
Okay. I don't know who that is, but I do remember that Juno Temple was in it.
And then Billy Magnuson, the guy from Ingrid Goes West, who plays the asshole brother.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one's definitely getting added to the list. I feel like kind of in the same vein as Panos Cosmatos, this very fever dream surrealist approach to something that could be very grounded is Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers. I
I haven't
fucking
seen this.
love this movie. It is so weird and so like uh hallucinogenic in some ways. Like there's this repetition of certain lines of dialogue and the way that the music immerses you and the lighting. It's and then of course, you know, it's got one of the best performances by James Franco as a Florida dope boy, which very accurate portrayal of this kind of character. And it of course it was cool to see a lot of the you know, the Disney girls kind of cut loose and do something a little more edgy, a little more adult. And I think Spring Breakers is just a hell of a lot of fun. I think people should watch that one.
That's one that's going to get added to my list because I always hear how bad this movie is and how James Franco's so horrible in it.
Oh, I got to
And
hear your take on it.
I cannot wait to see this movie because a lot of times when I hear movies are really bad, I watch them. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You know, like they're usually surprisingly good.
I'm going to put this in the category with Mandy for you, where if nothing else, it's a sensory experience. I can't
Okay.
guarantee that you're going to like it, but I really do want to hear what you think about it.
I would, yeah, that's kind of how Mandy, like Mandy isn't a thing I would recommend for people like, oh, you're going to watch and enjoy, but I would recommend it for film buffs just to watch.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
My next one is Monsters by Gareth Edwards.
It's a very good
Um,
movie.
I loved this movie because it's really just a drama where monsters are the backdrop, not really the plot itself.
Mm.
And you can kind of see this, I think, carry over into the Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I feel like he kind of did the same type of thing. And I can understand why later people were turned off by the Godzilla movie. But if you saw Monsters, I think you kind of knew what you were getting into based on this. And there are just some strong performances here. It's a slow film. If you like a slow burn, I highly recommend it.
This is a good part for me to point out one of the franchise movies that would have been included on a different list, but Gareth Edwards' Godzilla from 2014, I felt like is a very exactly what you said. They try to use the human drama to anchor the shit going on in the background. While it may not do that part as successfully as Monsters does, I really like that Gareth Edwards tried to ground Godzilla in a reality that was tangible, and his ability to capture scale is so on display in Monsters, Godzilla, and then later even Star Wars Rogue One. There's something about the
I
way
didn't
that
realize
he
he directed
shoots.
Rogue One.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yes. And you can, if you
Now it
think
makes me want
about
to see
it.
it.
Oh, you hadn't seen it yet.
No.
There's a scene at the end where the ATSTs are storming these beaches, and they look so much bigger than you have ever seen them before. And it's because of the way that Gareth Edwards shoots from low and is able to just capture the scale and the fucking epicness. Like when you see Godzilla being flanked by battleships as he's fucking swimming through the water, I can't speak highly enough of this filmmaker. So yeah, I think Monsters is definitely one that people should check out. My next one is Kill List. It is a British occult horror crime thriller, and it is the opposite of a feel-good movie. I would imagine that if you're not into that sort of very nihilistic, dark meditations on the depths of our the links that people are willing to go to and how we get desensitized to violence and all that kind of stuff, it is a very, very it's a very heavy movie, but I also think it's like this cool fucking mix of I don't know, Reservoir Dogs and Wicker Man or something like that. Have you seen it?
I've never even heard of this movie. The only Ben Wheatley movie I've seen is Free Fire.
Did I say Ben Wheatley? Oh, you looked it up real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, Ben Wheatley is awesome. Free Fire is pretty good. A Field in England is very, very experimental and cool, but I highly recommend Kill List. I think that it is it's a shocker.
I'm going to have to go back after to listen to this podcast and make a list.
Seriously, yeah, me too.
My next one is going to be Wolf Children by Mamoru Hosoda. It's a Japanese anime.
Okay.
It's a story about a woman who falls in love with a werewolf and has two kids with him, and then he dies. And it's about her trying to raise her she's a normal human woman trying to raise her wolf children in a world that doesn't understand them. And it's a family feel good drama about motherhood that is just really hit me in the feels in a lot of different ways.
It's on that furry shit too, which I know you're a pretty big fan
I'm a
of.
pretty big fan. Everyone thinks anytime I draw anything humanoid, they think it's a furry.
That sounds awesome. Is it Studio Ghibli? Is it fucking
No, so I actually think this Mamoru Hosada, I can never say his name, is much better than anything Ghibli. I would recommend Wolf Children. I recommend The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I'd recommend The Boy and the Beast, Summer Wars, Mirai. Like all of these are top tier filmmaking.
Well, then I will have to check that out. That sounds interesting. Okay, this is one that I just recently saw, and again, I actually told you about it just the other day, but Anna and the Apocalypse is such a rewatchable and fun movie. It's very much a Christmas movie, so I don't know that it's going to work throughout the year quite the same way. And if you're not a fan of musicals, again, you're going to get about 5 minutes into it and be like, what the fuck am I watching, and turn it off. But I found it to be incredibly entertaining, and just it's a fun watch. And what I like about it, it sets it up really well early on that like this isn't the everything works out perfect, happy ending Hollywood story that you're used to. This is more like real life, and they use this zombie outbreak as a way of exploring coming of age and dealing with loss and grief and things like that through the lens of really silly High School Musical, Glee-esque framed musical that's completely self-aware. But yeah, I love this movie. I think you guys should all check it out.
This one is one I missed for Christmas, so I'm holding off on it until next Christmas. I'm absolutely going to watch this film and check it out.
Excellent. What's your next one?
So Kick-Ass, the first Kick-Ass, directed by Matthew Vaughn.
I see.
I feel like this is one of the better comic book movies. It does not the best, the superheroes in the real world thing, but there's some charm about it, and I love Matthew Vaughn's directing. I think he went on to do amazing things with other films, and this was a good showcase for his work at the beginning. It's very lighthearted, very fun, not really worthy of being in my top 20, but a movie that I've gone back to a couple of times and enjoy every time.
Some of the changes that he made from the graphic novel, I feel like just make it so much more digestible and so much more like enjoyable. And yeah, the whole rocket pack sequence at the end, I think there's valid criticisms to why that doesn't work quite as well as what happens at the end of the book. But I just feel like he understood the source material, what worked about it, as well as what probably didn't work about it as well. And I think that that's a very good adaptation.
I agree. I think sometimes you can overly stick to the source material and ruin a film. Sometimes, they're different mediums, and I feel like he understood that.
The Night Comes for Us is I couldn't even tell you where it's from. I want to say it's let me go ahead and look real quick. The Night Comes for Us though is a crime epic martial arts movie that stars several very famous The Night Comes for Us. Several famous people that you will see in other martial arts movies. Iwo Akua, the guy from The Raid is in it.
Okay.
Let me see what's his name.
It also looks like it's on Netflix, so I'm adding it to my list right now.
It is on Netflix. It's fantastic. Okay, Iko Uwais, Joe Taslim, and it is Indonesian, so same origin of The Raid Redemption, which may come up on my top 20 list here in a little bit. But it is such a badass. It's long. It's tons and tons of fight sequences, lots of them involving like blades and axes and a lot of the similar stuff that you see in The Raid, only this one's got a more like a crime saga epic feel to it. It's also got a grindhouse vibe, little Tarantino-esque, but man, it is fucking cool. And if you like martial arts movies, I think that this is one you'll really appreciate.
I'm already sold. I love martial arts film. I love a good mindless action film.
Yeah, this is that.
My next one is Enemy by Denis Villeneuve, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. This was a movie, the first time I watched it, I didn't know if I liked it. It's a weird movie. I went back and watched it again just to kind of recheck it out and enjoyed it so much more a second time. Um, it is definitely weird. It's definitely I would say art house more style film. It's not a very digestible film, but there's some really cool motifs about self, about battling with yourself, and it's just very interesting, and visually it's stunning.
Yeah, this isn't a movie that's really concerned with it's more about the metaphor than it is about giving you any sort of like concrete answers or stories, or like if you're looking for some sort of big payoff, this isn't that. It is a more cerebral kind of exploration, like you said, of the conflict of your inner self and trying to reconcile the two your duality, I guess, in a lot of ways. And I think it's such a fucking cool movie.
I feel like this I put almost in the same category as Mandy, where I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a enjoyable film, but it's definitely something you should watch.
Oh, dude, yeah, Gyllenhaal's performance alone. Okay, so while I didn't put any documentaries in my actual top 20, I did want to call out Three Identical
I knew that
Strangers.
was coming as soon as you said you didn't put a documentary.
It is one of the most what the fuck crazy stories that I have ever heard. Stranger than fiction kind of situation where I don't even want to give any of it away, but it basically, yeah, I don't want to give any of it away. Watch that fucking movie. Caleb, did you see it?
No, it's been in my Hulu queue forever, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I've been just like binge watching like all the movies I missed over the past decade.
Oh my God, there's so many too, man. I was
Dude,
making
there's
a
so
list
many.
for that too of like movies I really want to watch.
Dude, there's like movies that I'm like, this might be on my list because it looks really good. That I just didn't have time.
Let me go ahead
Uh,
and knock out a couple of the documentaries that I have real quick. Have you seen The
yeah,
Act of Killing?
no,
Okay, so The Act of Killing is about a lot of the atrocities that were going on in, I want to say, I don't want to speak out of turn, The Act of Killing. But what's really fascinating about it is it's about gang members in the Indonesian mass killings of 1965 and 1966. And they were basically a bunch of street thugs that were hired to carry out these genocides against certain ethnic minorities. And they were so heavily inspired by the crime films of America that they saw themselves as like gangster anti-heroes. So the movie is like a meditation on how we as a society glorify violence and how Hollywood is able to kind of make heroes out of monsters essentially. But then the director, like halfway through it, he like flips the script on all these people who are just talking about how badass they were and how much they love fucking all the old Hollywood movies. And they're like, all right, well, we want you to kind of act out scenes and recreate some of the scenes. And you can see how warped their perspective is, that they see themselves as the good guys. And then when the filmmaker makes them go back and rewatch it, it's only then that they're able to get the true weight of what the atrocities they committed are. So it's like this fucking crazy mirror
what is
of
this called?
film. It's called The Act of Killing,
Act of Killing.
and it
Is it
came out in
streamable anywhere?
2012.
I'll find it while you're talking.
It is fucking powerful though, dude. It is it's one of the most shocking and just profoundly psychologically complex movies that I've ever seen. I think it's awesome. I would have put Dear Zachary on my list, but that was actually before 2010. And then I mentioned the Fyre Fest documentary to you the other day. It's called Fire. Highly recommend that one. And I believe those are the couple of documentaries that I wanted to mention.
I'll throw in one documentary since we're on the subject. Batman and Bill. It's on Hulu right now.
Okay.
It's a documentary about Bill Finger and how he never got credit for Batman.
Cool.
And it's really goes into detail about how big of a piece of shit the comic industry can be, and specifically Bob Kane. It's
wow. Yeah.
phenomenal. Like I cried at this documentary, and it's a documentary about the creator of Batman.
Yeah,
the unsung hero
Unsung
of this.
hero of Batman. Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
Bob Kane
my
can be
next
like, yeah, I did create Batman, but like, did you really, dude?
Yeah, like no, he co-created. It's a phenomenal. I've watched it twice and it's amazing.
I'll
Like
have to
even if you're
check
not a
that
fan of
out.
comic books, it's just a great documentary. My next actual film though is something that you turned me on to. Searching.
Oh
Uh
man, I almost put it on mine. It's good, right?
I just watched it literally last night. I picked it up on sale. It was on sale for $6 on Vudu and I'm like, I'm just going to watch it. And it's a movie that's phenomenal. Watch it now because this movie's going to age horribly. Um because it's so current. All the technology is current that in 10 years from now, if you show it to a kid, they're going to be like, what's this website that he's
Yeah.
going to?
It's
But
a good point
right,
though, because it's so timely and so relevant and so like right now that yeah, it's gonna age like crap, but it seems so poignant for the time that we're in right now.
it reminded me of, and this is a weird comparison, but like the Blair Witch of this generation.
Yeah, so just kind of explain the framing device for people.
So, Searching is a movie that is entirely told through a screen capture of a laptop, the entire film. Is just sharing his screen and it's tied to his iTunes account. So you get phone calls, you get video, you get him digging through Facebook posts. It's about his daughter going missing, his 15-year-old daughter, John Cho, who I think is an incredibly underrated actor anyway, about his 15-year-old daughter going missing and him just trying to figure out if she ran away, if she was abducted. And it's one of those films that's just so different and unique that I was glued to the screen from start to finish. I literally teared up during the opening act.
Yeah.
Like I almost cried my ass off during the opening scene. And I was like, okay, this movie got my attention right away.
It's a really cool movie about like parental love,
Mhm.
you know? And I also think like with a movie like Unfriended, that conceit of everything being done through the lens of a computer screen. They did it well in Unfriended, but what I like about Searching is it's like a grounded mystery that's kind of using that same framing device, so it is like so much elevated above your Unfriended, or there's one called The Den. But yeah, I feel like it was a criminally underseen and underappreciated movie, but those of us that have seen it
I
like it
agree.
a lot.
I'd never even heard of it until you brought it up. That was the only reason I watched this movie.
What We Do in the Shadows.
Almost made my list.
I love this movie. I'm a huge fan of the vampire genre. Yeah, I could have easily found a place to slide it into my top 20, but you know, I feel like a good like most SNL sketches, it's like you've got a really 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 strong premise, and then by the end of it it's just like you're just kind of dragging it out too long. And this isn't a long movie, but it starts off really 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 strong,
It
and
does
then
overstay its welcome a little bit.
yeah, it does. But that said, definitely Taika Waititi and the Flight of the Conchords guys have a pretty solid understanding of the genre and what people love about it, and they're able to play with it in a way that like shows it reverence without ever like sacrificing the laughs for it. I think it's fucking super funny, and Jermaine Clement's performance as well as Taika Waititi are both great in it. So yeah, What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, that was real close. My next one is Machine Gun Preacher.
Okay.
Mark Foster directed by, starring Gerard Butler. This was a movie I've not seen since I originally saw it, but it stuck with me. It's based on a true story about a preacher who goes to, I think, Sudan and becomes a revolutionary. And he literally walks around with a machine gun. He kills people. It's based on a true story. It's a fascinating exploration of, again, the duality of man and coming to terms with your, being a preacher, murder, and how you justify things. And just an overall strong war film.
Interesting. I hadn't even heard about that. So he's a Christian that goes over to another country and
Yeah, so it's a true story. He's like, if I remember right, he's like a former like drug dealer who became a preacher, and then he goes over to Sudan to like spread the word of God and gets involved in this war and like picks up a gun and starts like killing people,
holy
like to
shit.
defend people. It's a fascinating movie about like the duality, because you see this character who is struggling against his past of being like a drug dealer with his those tendencies coming back out with his struggling with his religion. It's a criminally underseen film.
Okay, so I think I mentioned this movie to you before. I don't know that we're on the same page about it. Doesn't matter, but there's a movie called Attack the Block. It's a British.
I love Attack the
Oh,
Block.
good. Yeah, dude. That one definitely made my honorable mentions. I can't tell you who directed it right now.
It's very seems like I cannot think of his name, but the guy who directed Shaun of the Dead and all those. It's like that
Yeah,
type of
Edgar
film.
Wright, and he actually
Edgar
works
Wright.
with that guy.
Oh, okay.
He's Joe Cornish is his name, and he actually worked, yes, very closely with Edgar Wright. I think Edgar Wright actually produced Attack the
Okay.
Block. This movie came out in 2011. It was the introduction of John Boyega, and it is about a bunch of like street kids in the inner like projects of England. And all of a sudden there's an alien invasion in their neighborhood, and the way that they react to finding that first alien and killing it and then like parading it around the freaking neighborhood, and then it's really fun. It's like an Amblin movie with way more edge to it.
I think that's a perfect Amblin movie with way more edge is a perfect summary of it, and some of the coolest monster designs, alien designs I've seen.
Oh, so simple and so awesome. I think that this is it's a very fun movie. I think some people might be put off maybe by the lower budget or the fact that most of our leads are unlikable little pricks that you eventually start to sympathize with, because they do that girl dirty at the fucking beginning of the movie,
They're
dude.
all shitty little ghetto kids.
Yeah. But as somebody who grew up with a bunch of shitty little ghetto kids, I could relate.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie.
My next one is It Comes at Night.
Okay, see, I haven't seen that one. It might have made its way onto my list. That's one I have to
think
see.
it would. It's because of the type of horror films you like, the like Hereditaries and the Suspirias. It's that more type of film. It's a very slow burn. It's about. It's just about like there's a virus. There's really no villain in the entire film. It's one of those ones where it's just about the humans being the most damning part, of a post-apocalyptic society.
Sure.
It's well directed. Joel Edgerton is phenomenal in it.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's so good in like everything. He really it's a film that stuck with me.
How did The Gift not make it onto my honorable mentions? 2015, directed by Joel Edgerton. He's so good, man. I
forgot he was in that.
Yeah, and he was in Bright also. So you win some, you lose some. But you know what? I never feel like
he was great in Bright. Let's give him that.
No, he was, dude. Absolutely the best part. I will say that comedy is a genre that doesn't get a lot of love, and when Jeremy puts comedies on his list, there's some sort of real subversive or like not really funny kind of comedies. It's like if you stretch like The Killing of a Sacred Deer or some shit like that, which I still hadn't seen, but like is that a comedy? I don't fucking know. But anyways, a pure comedy that I feel like it was one of the first times that I watched it and I laughed like I was a kid watching old Happy Madison movies is Pop Star Never Stop Stopping or Never Stop Believing or whatever, with the Lonely Island guys in it. Have you seen it?
This is more essentially it's like making fun of like a Justin Bieber type guy, right?
Yes.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it.
It is so fucking funny, dude. It is so funny and so stupid. One of my favorite scenes in it is like Andy Samberg's character is getting married, and he decides that he wants to have live wolves at his wedding. And they have Seal performing Kiss from a Rose, but for some reason the animal handlers can't keep the wolves under control because Seal's singing is like driving them into a fucking rage, and all of these wolves get loose at the fucking wedding and are just like chasing people down. It's super stupid, dude, but it is so funny, and I just feel like it's one of those throwback, like, this should never make anybody's top list, but if you just want to laugh your ass off, that's one.
I have a comedy later that's on my top list. Almost made it into my top 20. It's a bad movie, but I love it.
Oh, good, good.
My next one is Super 8, directed by J.J. Abrams.
Really? See, I would not have pegged you for that.
Love this film. This is an Amblin film to the max.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this is, in my opinion, J.J. Abrams' best film as a director, not as a producer. He has other stuff that Cloverfield's better, but as a director, to me, this is by far his best film. There's a lot of heart. It put it in the same category as I put like Goonies, Monster
Oh
Squad,
wow.
all of those same ones. Like, I adore this film.
Little Elle Fanning gives such an incredible performance in this movie. I think it's Elle Fanning.
Yeah, it is.
And I really like the fact that they're shooting a movie on a Super 8 camera when it happens. It's definitely a love letter to, as you said, Amblin, but filmmaking in general. There are nods to E.T., to Close Encounters. It really is like a kitchen sink approach to recapturing a lot of what people loved about those classic movies. And I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like the creature's characterization changed very fast in the literal blink of an eye in the third act. But that's a small nitpick. That's just maybe a reason why it didn't hold so highly on my list.
What's your next one?
3 Billboards Over Ebbing, Missouri.
I was trying to get this one in to watch. I bought it and didn't have time to watch it because I figured this might make my list.
Oh, I think you'll love it. It's Frances McDormand, Sam Rockwell, fucking Woody Harrelson. And it's a movie about a determined woman whose daughter was raped and murdered, and the local kind of bumpkin police don't really have the resources or the know-how, and they kind of fumbled the investigation, so she's not able to get any answers. So she decides to purchase these 3 billboards on this rural road that are basically just putting the fucking head police officer in the town, the sheriff, on blast, and everybody drives by it. It creates rift in the community, but every character is very nuanced and very layered, and you may think they're the antagonist, you may think they're the fucking hero, but all of them are way more complex than that, and it ends up having a lot of heart, and I feel like it could have been a Coen Brothers movie, but it wasn't. Okay. But it's fantastic.
My next one is The Disaster Artist, directed and starring James Franco.
I'm glad you put that one on there. What a fun movie.
I love this film. It's a great drama. It's a great comedy. It's everything. It's another one of those things that you can watch it as a comedy and it's great, but you can also watch it as a drama and it's just great. And he has such a stellar performance.
Have you seen The Room?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not gonna say this that will make or break it for you, but I found that knowing The Room as well as I did ahead of time really, really enhanced the experience for me. And it's another movie that is a celebration of making movies. So for people that love film and the process of it, it's so cool to see this guy who willed himself into the cultural zeitgeist. It wasn't talent, it wasn't skill, it was sheer determination, dude, and he fucking made it happen. And The Room is one of the most popular, especially like in internet circles, movies that were ever made. So like, props to Tommy Wiseau, but you're right, dude. James Franco fucking kills in that movie, and Seth Rogen as the director is so funny. Or as the what is he, the DP or something?
Yeah, the DP in it.
God, dude, so good.
I kind of had the opposite experience of that. I saw The Room and I hated it. Obviously, that's the point, you know?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was like, I didn't find any enjoyment in it. This made me appreciate The Room.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I made Victoria watch The Room before we went and saw Disaster Artist because I was like, I think it'll do enough for you without knowing it. But because they recreate several of the scenes in it, oh man, it fucking kills me. It kills me.
So yeah, that was one of those films I'm sure like you know, I've heard about for years, watched it for years because it was such a movie in like film buff circles.
Uh-huh.
And I do think I always was like, I don't get the big appeal, but after watching Disaster Artist, it really made me appreciate The Room.
There's so much heart in it, man. It's like I said, the relationship between Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau is a very interesting thing. But we'll move on from that. That was on my list also, by the way. Good Time, and I put Good Time on here. I have not seen Uncut Gems yet. I actually tried to go see it on Friday night, and of all things, because I'm an adult, I forgot my fucking wallet at the house, and they would not let me in because I didn't have my ID on me because I'm an A-list member. And I'm like so entitled. I almost like played the like the white girl fucking. Do you even know who I am? And I try to pull up my fucking Facebook and my Twitter and be like, yo, this is me. This is my fucking ID. And she's like, sorry, it's gotta be physical ID. So I missed it. But Good Time is a movie that stars Robert Pattinson.
Okay.
And he and his brother are his brother has a disability, and it opens up and his brother is like seeing a counselor. Well, Robert Pattinson's character is just this wiry con artist piece of shit, and he cares about his brother, but he's not a good dude. And situations escalate. It starts off as a small petty crime, and it all takes place over the course of about 24 hours. It's very showy. It's one of the most tense, fucking nerve-wracking experiences that you'll have in the theater. It proved to me that Robert Pattinson is like, he's no fucking slouch when it comes to actually being a fantastic actor. And I think that this is a movie that a lot of people probably didn't see because, well, for one thing, it was super low budget, and then Robert Pattinson being in it usually doesn't help. But I feel like people that want to know whether or not Robert Pattinson is going to be able to pull a good Batman should watch Good Time before they come up with their thoughts.
It's funny that you brought this up. I bought this movie 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
It was on sale. I haven't seen it yet. I bought it simply because I love Robert Pattinson. I think he's a phenomenal actor that gets pigeonholed as a Twilight guy. And then it's an A24 film, so I was like, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah, you're gonna really like it. It's a escalation of fucking messed up shit. So that's a good one.
My next one is my true comedy that I absolutely love, and I've seen probably like 20 times, and that is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, so good, dude. So good.
It's just such a brilliant, for people who are unaware of this film. If you like comedy, if you like horror, it's a must watch in my opinion. So it's a movie that shows perspective of, so it's about young kids, teenage kids going up and finding redneck murderers, but it's told from the point of the rednecks, and it's just a big misunderstanding. They're not murderers, they're just really dumb hillbillies, and it is brilliant.
Yeah, it's like it's like a mix between Deliverance and Cabin in the Woods, or a Deliverance and Scream. So, because like you said, perspective is everything, and we're introduced to this cast of young hot characters. Katrina Bowden from 30 Rock is like the lead female character in it, and all this group of friends, they're going out into like a cabin in the woods kind of thing, and they meet these two characters. One of them is what's his name? From oh my god, from Firefly and Serenity.
And, what's his name? And then the other guy's Tyler Labine, which I'm a huge fan of Tyler Labine. But what's the other guy's name?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to think of it.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk. He's great, dude. He's great. And so the whole thing starts as a miscommunication of these rednecks being awkward and trying to communicate with a girl and totally freaking them out. Well, so this group of people think that the rednecks are after them, and inadvertently just creates so much more fucking trouble than it's worth for everybody. And
I love this film.
It's very good. It's a very good one, man. My next one, and I feel like this is just such a singular and unique movie made by one of my favorite just talents in general. I'm a real big fan of Bo Burnham. I like his style. Eighth Grade. Yeah, I think Eighth Grade is a wonderful, wonderful movie that shows a perspective that we're not used to seeing, and does it with a layer of like empathy and understanding of youth. Way more than we get from most filmmakers, because Bo Burnham is a guy that was like discovered on YouTube. Like, he grew up in the digital generation, and I feel like he has a real respect and understanding of the child actors that he uses in it. And Elsie Fisher is fantastic in it. I think this is a really good movie.
My next one is Chappie. I love the movie Chappie.
Oh God.
like I know everyone hates this movie. It's essentially um Short Circuit, essentially.
Uh-huh.
A
In
serious take on,
RoboCop a little in there.
yeah, like, and I love Neil Blomkamp. I
I do
think
too.
um Charles, what's his name? I'm gonna pull up his name.
Charlotte Copley.
Yeah, Sharplo Copley is great in everything, and he's only the robot in this, and he has a. I just think it's a very cool dystopian, cyberpunky, cool atmosphere. I adore this movie. It's not technically a movie that I felt that I could put in my top 20, but it's a movie that I feel like gets a lot of unnecessary hate.
I actually really liked it. When I saw it in the theater in particular, I really liked it. I think in retrospect, I think my biggest problem was the casting of fucking
The ninja and whatever.
Diane Ford or whatever, fucking Ninja and Baby, whatever the fuck. And it's not because of their music or their on-set antics, which I heard Ninja was a fucking nightmare that nobody
I'm
ever
sure.
wanted to work with him again. But it's just that they weren't experienced actors, and so for me, that's the only place where it kind of suffered a little bit. But there were some great scenes in it, like when Chappie's running around with fucking ninja stars, like,
Yeah,
dude, yeah, it
it's
definitely
just a
has some
cool
good stuff
movie.
in it. Yeah, I agree. And Neil Blomkamp's vision, when we were talking about it doesn't have to be story. Sometimes it can be aesthetic, and I feel like he does movies like Neil Blomkamp, and there's nobody else that does it like him.
I almost put him into the same category. It sounds weird that I put Zack Snyder in, where I'm like, if you like what Zack Snyder does,
Yeah.
you're gonna like most of his catalog.
I agree. Yeah, that's
If
a good
you
call.
don't, you're not. And Neil Blomkamp's the same way.
This is one that I know that you and I talked briefly about, so we don't have to go into it super deep, but it's a movie called The Ritual that is available for streaming on Netflix. It's a horror film, and it is about a group of men that go out into the wilderness to bond after a tragedy that one of them kind of feels responsible for when they start to encounter some very supernatural, strange, occult happenings out in the woods.
Almost made my list. Just simply off the monster design alone, almost made my list.
I do the scene when they make their way into that little Blair Witch cabin and they go up into the
Amazing.
roof and they see, or into the attic and they see the straw man. That's when I was just like, ooh, this is real fucking creepy. And it builds atmosphere very well.
The use of the convenience store in the middle of the woods, there's a couple cool shots with like shelving.
Yeah.
Just really cool and interesting.
Yes, yeah. For those of you guys that are familiar, you know what we're talking about. But I definitely think that if you're a horror fan that's looking for something other than The Conjuring 17, then I think this is a kind of cool route to go.
My next one is a film that's actually streaming on Netflix right now called J'ai perdu mon corps, which I probably destroyed that. It's called I Lost My Body. And
I heard about it.
This movie is phenomenal. It is a animated French film about a decapitated hand. I guess not decapitated, but a hand that's looking for its body, and it's traveling trying to find his body of the owner of the hand, while at the same time showing flashbacks to like an indie love story.
Okay.
It is weird. It is different. It is moving, and I wish everyone would watch this film.
I like the art style. I liked what I saw about it, and it's one that I've been considering definitely putting on. I feel like it's got that vibe, kind of what we were talking about the other day, where it's a kind of less fantastical animated. Well, it sounds fantastical. It really does, but it sounds like almost like a drama, like an indie drama that's animated.
It's an indie slice of life film with a weird element.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's one that I'll definitely check out. The next one that I have on my list is called I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. And
Great film.
You've seen it?
Yes, I can't believe I didn't even think of this film. Probably should have been on my list.
God, dude, it is so good. And it's got Melanie Linsky from, I think, season 2 of Fargo, as well as Elijah Wood. His performance is great in it. It's a dark comedy. Another one of those, like, what do they call them? If it's like a something of errors, a comedy of errors, I believe is what they call them. I think it's either Australian or British. But brilliant, it's very, film. Very good. Yeah. I think that it's something that if you like crime movies, this is one that will definitely resonate with you.
My next one is End of Watch, directed by David Ayer.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah, that one might have made it on my list.
I love this film. It's by far David Ayer's best film.
Best one.
Jake Gyllenhaal is great as always. Michael Pena is great as always. I think he's pretty much great in everything. It's a found footage drama, essentially cop drama, and it's genuinely moving.
And fucking scary at times too, man.
Oh,
Like it is intense. It reminds me of a found footage version of Sicario.
I feel like that is a perfect, like a perfect comparison.
The End of Watch is definitely more about like the brothers in arms. There's a much deeper sense of camaraderie, where in Sicario there's a lot of distrust between the people that you work with. This is like, when you're in the trenches with somebody, this is what I imagine that kind of relationship would be like, where they will straight up lay their lives down for each other. And it's fucking powerful. It's incredibly suspenseful. Again, not the feel-good movie of the year, but very realistic to what it is. And while I think it sensationalizes a little bit of like the cartel violence, not when I say sensationalize, I don't mean glorify, but just kind of plays it up a little bit in the same way that maybe Sicario did. I think there was nobody better to direct this film than David Ayer, because he actually served on the LAPD and has like experience immersed in that life. And I feel like that's what made it feel so authentic.
I agree. It feels very real.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Blind Spotting is one of my honorable mentions.
Blind Spotting. So I hate this film.
Do you really?
I find it the most racist, liberal, white guilt film ever.
What?
Me and my wife
Oh,
were watching it and we were dying of laughter. We're like, this is the most racist shit I've ever seen.
man, I did not see it that way at all. I kind of identified with all of the character. Well, Ethan Embry was like a piece of shit, but like you could still tell that like he was a human being underneath it. It was like a bad fucking judgment call, right?
Oh no, I had a totally different film. I love this film.
I thought you did. I thought you
Okay.
did, man. I was
You know
put
what I
off
had in
by
my
that.
head when you said this?
No.
Blindside with Sandra
Oh
Bullock.
no, bro! Come on.
I was like,
I'm
really,
I'm
dude?
better. I'm better than that. That shit is racist
No, I
as
actually
fuck.
adore this film. My bad.
No, so for those of you guys that don't know, this is a very, very much a slice of life. It's got like I feel like a kind of like that socially conscious movement of hip hop from the 90s, early 90s kind of like message and approach to it. It's got a good soundtrack. The two lead performances are really good.
Phenomenal.
And I just feel like it's
Well,
relatable.
and I felt like this was one of the most usually like I was worried about this film that it might be like super woke or super like anti-white, and it's absolutely not. I
No.
feel like it's one of the most honest conversations about race that I've seen in a film in a long, long, long time.
Yep. Yeah.
I know. I can't believe. Yeah, I had the wrong movie in my head. No, phenomenal film. Disregard what I said. Absolutely see Blind Spotting.
What's your next one?
My next one is Air, starring Norman Reedus and Damon Hunsun. I can never say this guy's name.
Sure.
Diamond Johnson or whatever his name is.
Uh-huh.
The African guy. This is a movie. It's a post-apocalyptic movie that takes place in a bunker, where the concept is that they are just two men who are tasked with keeping civilization alive. And every day they wake up, or every couple of months they wake up, and they have 24 hours worth of oxygen to run tests, make sure everything's working good on the computers, and go back to sleep. And it is a powerhouse performance by both of them about insanity, about being alone, about just being stuck in this box for a long, long time. It's a really interesting small film.
Yeah, never heard of it. Definitely piqued my interest there. I got two more on my honorable mentions. How are you looking on your honorable mentions?
I got like 7 that I can run through super quick. Just
Go ahead,
titles.
knock a couple out.
Okay. So I got Super, directed by
James Gunn.
James Gunn.
Fuck.
Great film. The Revenant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love The Revenant.
Surprised that made its way to your list.
Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, a phenomenal director.
Beautiful movie.
The Girl with All the Gifts, which is
You told me about that, and I've been wanting to see it.
Bandersnatch, which I loved.
Did you really?
I love
I
Bandersnatch. I feel
had a
like
lot of fun with it too.
I think it's a smart play. It plays in it's the interactive thing actually makes sense with it. I feel like it's not just a choose your own adventure. The whole point of interacting is the point of the film.
Yes.
Um, Dunkirk,
I haven't
which
seen Dunkirk, man. I really need to.
Dunkirk is just masterclass filmmaking. Animal World, directed by Jan Han, um, which is a weird movie about math and superheroes. And
Okay.
Kingsman, Secret Service, the first Kingsman. Love this
Okay.
film. War of the Planet of the Apes.
Love it, man. See, I no franchise films, but all of the Planet of the Apes movies could have easily been
I agree.
on a top list. Like those movies are all just impeccable.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Great movie visually. Like that's a movie that it really stimulates your senses.
So Dunkirk is World War II Mad Max.
Really
It's no story, very light dialogue, just visual feast.
interesting.
And then Hateful Eight. That gets me to my top 20.
Dude, yeah, all great choices. As far as the ones that I've seen, there's a couple that I haven't that I definitely do want to go back and check out. I've got two more in my honorable mentions. One that I know you're very split on. I think you ended up on the side of negative, but sorry to bother you.
Yeah, I ended up hating it because of the end. But up until then, it's like a 9 out of 10 film.
That movie has got gigantic nuts. Boots Riley made a movie that like what even is that, man? Like what a fucking weird movie. And then I can't imagine anybody else coming out. It was one of the most original and just strange and tonally weird movies that I've seen. Like when he's dropping through the floor on his telemarketing calls and ending up in these people's like living rooms and shit. Just directing wise, it was very fucking cool and weird.
Well, and as someone who does over the phone sales, it really resonated with me through 90% of that movie.
Yeah, and anybody that saw it will know at the point where it's like, okay, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
But
And then also the messaging completely changes. Up until that point, it's a very much a movie about like fighting with your ideals of your wokeness versus trying to make money and maybe outgrowing your friends. And then it goes super woke in the last like 2 minutes for no reason. You're like, well, they're throughout all the complexity in your entire argument, the entire film.
So did you like the staircase rap scene?
Yes, love that scene.
Yeah, I did too. So it was right after that, pretty much.
Right after that is where, and the night before I had friends come over, we stopped the movie right there. And I was like, okay, we'll finish it tomorrow morning because I had friends come over and I didn't want to be that person and just be like, hey, wait for 20 minutes while I finish this movie. So all night I was like, this is going to be my top 10. I woke up the next morning and pressed play and I was like, what the hell just happened?
Last honorable mention, and this is one from this year, and I figured it was gonna be good, dude. I liked the trailers for it, but Ready or Not is a fucking sleeper, awesomely fun horror movie that came out by the guys. Radio Silence was the directors behind it. It's the one with Samara Weaving as a bride, and she's marrying into this incredibly wealthy family. But at midnight on the night of their marriage, and before they consummate their vows, they have to play a game because this family has made their fortune off of board games, essentially, over generations. So it's the luck of the draw. The bride or the groom to be to marry into this wealthy, powerful family. They get to randomly select the game that they play. Sometimes you get checkers. Sometimes you get go fish. Sometimes, if you're extremely unlucky, you get hide and seek. And if you do draw that card, you have to survive through the night while the rest of the family hunts you down and tries to kill you and make it till sunrise. And then all of a sudden, welcome to the family. Now you can be a part of this. And it's fucking gonzo. It's very fun. It's not quite like You're Next, where it doesn't really try to turn our female protagonist into like a superhero, but she's still super fucking smart and resourceful. And I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but
no, but it's on my list because it looks like movies that I don't know if you've seen yet, but Mom and Dad It looks like
Yeah.
it's very similar to that.
Yes.
Looks very similar to Mayhem and A Nasty Piece of Work, that Christmas movie, which I love all three of those. I think they're excellent, and this looks in the same vein.
Yeah, dude, production design is gorgeous. But anyways, yeah, big fan of that. And now we're gonna go ahead and transition. For the franchise movies, guys, you know the ones. I really like the Force Awakens of all the new Star Wars movies. All of the Avengers was good. Stuff, you know what I mean. Logan, Deadpool, the shit you've heard us all talk about a million times. But so for our top 20 list, we're just gonna go back and forth, starting obviously at number 20 and working our way down to the bottom. There are going to be some redundancies, so if we do dive into one at one point and it's going to come up later on the person's list, we won't double down on each of them. But without further ado, Caleb, kick it off with number 20.
So number 20 is kind of a cheat because it was released in Japan in 2009 but didn't come to America until 2010. So on IMDb it shows 2010.
Good enough.
It's a film called Red Line. It's an anime directed by Takeshi Koike. It's a movie about a sci-fi race that is batshit insane, makes no sense, but is so visually appealing that you cannot take your eyes off the screen. It's almost like Mandy racing animated.
Really?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm in.
Like it's a phenomenal film. If you want a good story, you're not going to find it here. If you want like deep performances, you're not going to find it here. This is a movie that knows what it is. It knows it's just a visual spectacle and it leans into it so heavily.
So my number 20, and this is a low-key drama, and before it was released, it wasn't one that was on the radar for me, but it ended up being very, very powerful relationship stuff. It's called Hell or High Water. It starred Chris Pine and Ben Foster, and it's about two brothers who are about to lose their fucking cattle ranch, so they have to resort to going and committing bank robberies to stick it to the man because the bank's going to foreclose their family's ranch. And I just thought that it was a really cool modern take on the Western genre, and yeah, love it.
And Ben Foster is such an underrated actor.
He really is, and Jeff Bridges is in there doing his thing. It's some of the best work from him.
This is one that has piqued my interest for a long, long time.
I think it's great.
My number 19 is Drive, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, however you say his name, starring Ryan Gosling.
Yep.
And this is definitely a style over substance film, where Ryan Gosling gives a really good performance, although he has like 4 lines of dialogue in this entire film.
Yeah.
And then of course, Oscar Isaac is great in it as well. Bryan Cranston is great. This is just first of all, it's really the director's only great film. All the others are a little too much for me.
Yeah.
It has this really artsy yet digestible film.
Yeah, where Neon Demon and Only God Forgives go a little far out. Drive is definitely neon fucking fever dream. I always go back to that thing. It's neon. It's got the Kavinsky score. I feel like it was one of the forerunners of kind of bringing back that 80s neo-noir aesthetic of like your original Terminator movie or something. Fucking Drive is badass. It's a little further up my list, but my next one is one that we've also already discussed, and that is End of Watch. I think End of Watch is some of the best cop storytelling movies that I've ever seen, and a lot of times with found footage movies, it's harder and harder to justify why motherfuckers don't just put down the camera and do something. With cops and you got body cams, and then all of a sudden it makes perfect sense. So I feel like that framing device for this works a lot better than most found footage. But yeah, really,
I feel like
really
it's
great
one
movie.
of the best found footage movies of all time.
Most definitely.
My next one is another director that I already mentioned, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, Birdman.
The great movie.
I love this performance. It's has all hidden cuts in it, so it looks like one long shot for 2 hours, which is interesting. visually. Michael Keaton and Edward Norton and Emma Stone all give like phenomenal performances, especially Michael Keaton.
See, and I say especially Edward Norton, dude. God, they were all so good
They're
though.
so good. Like Michael Keaton's performance is, knowing too he used to play Batman, and it's kind of a parody lightly on that and being typecast. It's just a very moving, interesting art house piece deconstructing Hollywood. It's just an interesting film all around.
It really couldn't be much different than The Revenant either. Like they are
Oh, I
so
know.
dichotomically opposed. They're dichotomically opposed.
All of his movies are good. Not didn't come out this decade, but Babel also phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I didn't even realize that was him. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great movie. Number 18. What's the guy's name that directed it? He's done a couple of different movies. Dragged Across Concrete, Brawl, and Cell Block 99, I believe it's called. Craig S. Zoller. And this is the first of his movies that I saw. And again, to that rule of only one for me per filmmaker, this is the one that I feel best embodies his work. It's called Bone Tomahawk. It stars Kurt Russell, Matt Fox, Patrick Wilson, Richard Jenkins. It's a great, great ensemble, kind of an old school Western. It's a Cowboys versus Indians story at the most basic. Like there's these raiders that come into their little Western town and kidnap a woman and a couple of women, I think, and they run off with them. And so they decide that they're going to launch a search party and go out and try to rescue these people. And by the 2/3 mark, it occurs to you that this is a straight up fucking horror movie. Like what you think you're watching, it evolves into something so much more dark and sinister. And while there's no supernatural elements in it, it pulls no punches. And when I say Cowboys versus Indians, like they at least had the good decency to refer to this specific group of like this tribe. They're troglodytes. They're like cave-dwelling cannibals that live in the mountains. They're not like just regular Indians. They're like it's fucking crazy. Highly recommend it. The dialogue and the quiet moments are some of the best parts of it, and it's just this real cool story about male bonding and male relationships.
It's another one that's been on my list that I'm definitely going to check out now. Coming in at number 17 for me is Her, directed by Spike Jonze.
It's Spike Jonze. I need to see that movie, man.
Starring Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson. This is essentially, it's a love story about falling in love with AI.
Mm-hmm.
It asks some very interesting questions about what is consciousness, what is love. And from a visual standpoint, in my opinion, probably the best color grading on this entire list.
Oh wow. I didn't even think of it in terms of that. I had no idea.
It is stunningly beautiful, the colors in this film. It's like a very retro color palette. Like everything's very pastel. And it's a very touching, moving, weird movie. And in my opinion, Scarlett Johansson's best performance.
Is she on screen at all?
Nope.
Oh, it's just her voice.
Just her voice, and it is phenomenal. Like going in this movie, I'm like, yeah, this is a guy who falls in love with Siri. This kind of sounds dumb, but she sells it so well to where you're like, I could see this. I can understand.
I'm falling in love with Siri.
Yeah, you're like, I'm already into it.
Spike Jonze is one of the coolest like music video directors of all times. He's also done a whole lot of movies, but he got started doing like Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott videos. Yep. Like he's dope. So I should have assumed that it was going to be very stylistically interesting, but that's one that I've been really meaning to check out. Okay, so my number 17 is I want to say her name. I think it's Carrie Kasama. It's called The Invitation, and it stars Green Joe. Let's see. It's directed by Karen Kusama, and Logan Marshall Green, the guy that was from Upgrade, is in it, and he's reuniting with a group of friends after a tragedy left all of them estranged. We're left into the dark about what happened. But when he shows up to this party, he starts to kind of spiral into paranoia. He doesn't know if things are exactly what they seem, and it seems like there's something ominous going on. However, because of the trauma that he's recently experienced, he doesn't know whether he should trust his instincts or whether he's overreacting, and that's kind of the way the rest of the group are reacting to him. There's more to it than what first meets the eye, and it leaves on one of the most ominous and foreboding cliffhangers that I've ever seen in a movie. I think that this is badass. I have a feeling that you in particular would actually really like this movie.
Just the way you described it, I'm like, I'm already sold. Yeah, like it already sounds twisted and weird and dark and uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
Which I love movies like that.
And it all just comes down to social graces. Like how far are you willing to go to be polite, even if you've sensed that things are all fucked up? I think it's very good. So that's one that I recommend.
If I might be wrong, but
no, that's where I saw it.
Okay, I might go watch that today. My number, what are we on? 16 is directed by Craig Gillespie. I, Tonya.
That's a fucking great movie, dude.
Oh, this movie is so good. Margot Robbie gives a stellar performance. The writing's incredible. The directing's incredible. It doesn't glorify her. It also kind of plays into the thing that people do where they're like, oh, I saw it in a movie, so that's what really happened. It pretty much, even at the beginning, based on a true story, kinda, or whatever it says. It plays into the fact of like, this is a movie, this is a recollection of thoughts, and these may not be accurate, and it really plays into that, and it is so smart and well directed. And I liked Margot Robbie before. This was the one that I was like, man, this girl can really act.
Oh, it's so good, and it's like it humanizes her without trying to, like you said, glorify or glamorize her. And it also kind of changed the way that I perceive Nancy Kerrigan as well, for better or worse. I fucking think this movie's good, and I think one of its strengths is that it is legit funny. Like it is
hilarious.
A very good movie. If it's one of those movies that you're like, it's up for Oscar nominations, it's probably gonna be a fucking snooze fest. It's definitely not. It's very entertaining. My number 16 is Sing Street.
Is this the animated film?
No, it's a movie. It's actually directed by the same Irish filmmaker that did the movie Once. So this guy loves music. It's about a group of high school kids, one in particular that starts a kind of post-punk mod rock band to impress a slightly older girl. It's a musical, but all the music numbers are organic because they're kids in a band that are actually playing the music. So it's not like a musical where they just like randomly bust into song and dance, but each of the songs, as they're writing and performing them, the whole thing is included in it. The song Drive It Like You Stole It got fucking robbed the year that it came out of Best Original Song because it's one of the best songs in a musical, period. The cast is super strong, but as somebody who grew up playing in bands and really liking that whole scene, they go through a phase where they're playing songs that sound like Duran Duran, The Cure, Depeche Mode, who was it? The Culture Club. Like it's very, very good. Can't recommend it enough. And it's one that I think is also criminally underseen.
I've never even heard of it. I'm very excited to check out these films I've never heard of. Yeah. My number 15 is, and you'll see the director who I'm talking about who's going to be all over this list,
no, I already know.
Is Prisoners, directed by Denis Villeneuve.
I think the reason why that one's not on my list anywhere is because I have not seen it.
It is Hugh Jackman's best performance ever. The fact that he was not nominated or didn't get an Oscar for that, to me, is just unreal. Also, cinematography from Roger Deakins. Again,
man, he's awesome.
And now, don't expect anything like Blade Runner level. Obviously, it's not that type of movie, but is one of the most intense movies I've seen. And he builds suspension so well in this film, especially someone who just had a daughter. My wife was already pregnant at the time, and it's about, for anyone who knows, it's about a man whose daughter gets abducted. Um, Jake Gyllenhaal is great as always. I think he's a phenomenal actor. He's great as a cop, but Hugh Jackman really steals the show. Also, Viola Davis is in it, and Terrence Howard. Like, that's an all-star cast with an all-star director, and as a thriller, one of the best thrillers I've ever seen.
No need to bury the lead, but it's not exactly one of those like feel good, walk out of
No.
the theater fucking cheering kind of movies, huh?
No, it's definitely a movie that you walk out and you're just like, oh, I feel like crap right now.
Yeah.
But I've seen it twice already,
Yeah.
like since then.
I got a couple of those. I tried to alternate. I tried to because there's something about those kind of movies that resonate with me from time to time, but I understand they're not for everybody.
Yeah, my list gets real depressing here on out.
Number 15 for me, Knives Out. Who would have thought that a movie I saw just like a couple months ago would have got its way all the way up to this point on my list? Knives Out is one of the most fun I've had in the theater in a long time. It's hard to say why I didn't put it higher up on this list, other than it doesn't necessarily speak specifically to my sensibilities. I do like the Agatha Christie style murder mysteries. The ensemble cast is impeccable. It's well documented on People Are Terrible that I love Ana de Armas, and she's fantastic in this movie. I really hope she gets nominated.
She is also the most beautiful woman in Hollywood. I say that every single time.
Yes, 110%. They try their best to like downplay that a little bit in Knives Out, but you ain't fooling me. I fucking see you.
Yeah, I don't care what you do. You could shave her head and throw mud on her, and I'd be like, she's still the hottest woman in Hollywood.
Actually, her and Daniel Craig are in the new Bond movie together. The next one that's coming out. So she's the new, I think, femme fatale in the Bond movie, which is like the perfect fit for her.
And not to just go about her looks, but she actually can act too. She's actually a great actress.
She's great in Knives Out. I think that for me, that was one of the biggest revelations, is that she's acting among people like Don Johnson and Toni Collette and Chris Evans and Daniel Craig. And
so is Knives Out kind of like comedy, or is it very serious? Because the trailer kind of made it look more like a comedy-esque.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy. It's a comedy caper. It's a whodunit. Did you see Murder on the Orient Express?
The original, not the new one.
Okay, well, it's like the new one, only it doesn't suck.
Okay.
Yeah, great ensemble, very funny, very charismatic cast. So yeah, that was my number 15.
My number 14, man, I'm going back to the same one twice. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, Incendies.
I hadn't even heard of this one.
So this is his first film. It's his French film.
What year is that from?
2010.
Okay.
So yeah, this is his very first movie. It's about a woman in, I forget exactly where, but she's in the Middle East, I think in like Palestine. It tells a story that goes back and forth between her kids. She's going, hey, and this is all in the first 5 seconds, I'm not spoiling anything. Hey, I want you, she passes away, she gives letters. She's like, I want you to give this one letter to your father. I want you give this one letter to your brother. And it goes back with flashbacks with her mom in the Middle East and shows her tragic life, and leads all the way up into her kids giving both of these characters a letters. And I feel like there's an argument almost to say this is one of his best, even though it didn't resonate with me as his best. I feel like there's a strong argument here. Definitely makes Prisoners almost look like a lighthearted movie.
Oh, wow.
It is a gut punch of a film. There are some brutal scenes. There's children murdered. It's that type of movie.
Oh, wow.
So if you're not prepared for that in a mental state, don't watch it. But this is like a 10 out of 10 film. It is masterclass filmmaking.
That's so interesting about this director too. On one end of the spectrum, you've got something like Arrival. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got one like the two that you just mentioned, or even Sicario, which Sicario will leave you with a fucking pretty rough feeling in the pit of your gut as well. So
he literally hasn't. He's the only director so far who has not made a bad film.
No, I agree. And very, very impressive. Number 14 for me, another real feel good movie. Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Almost made my list. Just saw it the other night for the first time.
Oh, so what did you think?
Loved it.
What Jake a performance, Gyllenhaal man!
Is great.
I love his whole. He's like lives by these weird self-help mantras, but applies them in the most
Those
fucking
twisted.
heinous ways. So for those of you guys that don't know, he's an ambulance chaser, basically. I think that might apply more to attorneys, but he's a photojournalist who goes
He's an
and
independent
captures.
news.
Yeah, and if it bleeds, it leads. So he goes and tries to get the most provocative, graphic photos and video footage to sell them to rival news networks for their breaking stories and stuff. And before long, he's manipulating fucking crime scenes, and it's just a spiral. It's completely shocking fucking movie, but it's interesting. It's just kind of like how far will your ambition push you, and wow, what a crazy fucked up movie.
Something that my dad turned me on to, because I watched this the other day because my parents are in town. We watched this together. Never seen Nightcrawler, and my dad afterwards was like, "I need you to watch this documentary series." There's a documentary series called Shot in the Dark, based on people who nightcrawl.
Oh, really?
On Netflix. And while you're watching Nightcrawler, you're like, "Oh, this is probably exaggerated." No, it's really not.
That's crazy.
These people are vultures. They are the most disgusting human beings. I watched 2 episodes. I felt like I was going to puke. I was like, I don't know if I can watch anymore.
It's like a miniseries?
Yeah, and it's a documentary, and they film like they're like there's one scene in that where he's like, "Oh, this is perfect. I can't see the girl's face. She's clearly dead in the car wreck, but I get the top of her head." And like,
damn,
these people are, and the way they justify what they do is insane. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm like a cop. I'm just doing a good job and helping the community." And you're like, "No, you're a vulture and a scumbag."
You're literally like circling dead things like a fucking vulture.
Yeah, so I would recommend, if you love, since you love this film, watch A Shot in the Dark. It'll make you appreciate this film even more. The way like Disaster Artist makes you appreciate The Room and vice versa. This is a good accompanying piece because you go, "Wow, this is painfully similar."
All right, what's your next one?
My next one is number 13 is Goodnight Mommy.
Whoa.
So Goodnight Mommy is another hard watch film. It's with these 2 twins whose mom had plastic surgery. It's a horror film, and things get weird very quickly. It's a movie that while I was watching it, didn't like. When it ended, I was like, I love this film.
It's German or Austrian, can't remember which
Something
one.
like that, yeah.
Very, very disturbing and very, very good. One of the better horror movies that's come out in the past 20 years or so. I would definitely concede to that. I didn't fucking stack the list with horror movies, but I remember distinctly just being shocked by the ending of that movie.
It's another one of those films, like, it hurts to watch by the end of it. It's really dark.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Uncomfortable. If you can make me uncomfortable to where I think of a movie afterwards, you're making my list.
My number 13 is and it's very similar to The Disaster Artist, but I just happen to like that we got a return to form from Eddie Murphy. We got one of his best performances of his career. It's very funny, very heartfelt. I liked a lot of the supporting cast, but Dolomite Is My Name is fucking awesome.
So it's actually good.
What's fucked up is originally I had The Disaster Artist / Dolomite Is My Name as as my count, because they are very, very close to the same movie. I mean, it's the idea of a person against all odds breaking their way into the film industry, making low budget movies.
Is this a Netflix original?
It is.
That's what I thought, because I thought I put it in my list because I was really interested. Is it more a comedy or a drama, or kind of a bit of both, like The Disaster Artist?
It's more of a drama than The Disaster Artist, and it's also probably funnier than The Disaster Artist as well. Like, it's really good, and where I do feel like a lot of we're a little on different pages about it. I feel like you do need to have seen The Disaster Artist to really understand some of the jokes and the recreations. I feel like regardless of whether you're familiar with Rudy Ray Moore or not, which I definitely was, but I feel like whether you were or not, you'll still get a sense of what made him such an interesting character. I had no idea prior to this that whole like jive talking, rhyming, everything was like a prison slang thing that
I
he
didn't either.
basically appropriated. Like, it was something that people like knew about in the 70s, and they were like, that's never going to work as a stand-up bit. White people don't want to see that shit, basically. And so he took that kind of cadence from some dude that he knew from prison and stole his act, basically, but turned it into a fucking enterprise. I think it's really good. The female supporting actor in it is super fucking good. I wish I had pulled that stuff up in front of me, but highly recommend My Name is Dolomite. One of the funner movies that I've seen of the year.
Yeah, it definitely is one that I thought might be bad, so I hadn't watched it. I'm happy to hear it's not, because I will definitely check it out. My number 12 is directed by Alex Garland, Annihilation.
Oh, nice.
I love this film. It is weird. It's disturbing. Has one of my favorite soundtracks of the past decade. Again, another one with color grading. There's this oil slick motif that is in the film, but it's also carried out throughout the entire film of color grading. It's a weird sci-fi movie, but it also is a movie about making mistakes and trying to come to terms with those mistakes.
Yeah. In some ways, it might have parallels with Enemy in a way that I never really thought about until just now.
Yeah, it's one of those films. I feel like a lot of people are like, it's weird. I'm like, it's so much deeper than you realize that movie is.
The first time I saw it, I felt like it might have fallen apart in the last 10 minutes. But then as I kind of read a little bit more about it and thought about what it meant more metaphorically than what it did like literally, it really did come into focus for me. The bear scene is completely fucking horrifying. I do
the
like
bear
what
scene
you
might
said.
be my favorite scene of the decade, up with the movie I didn't like, but the Hereditary
Scene. Yeah. The shimmer is what you're referring to. That weird kind of oil slick color grading that goes on through Annihilation. I believe it's called the shimmer. And what's also really fascinating about this, I don't know if I ever told you, but that region that they are going into, that's here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like that is actually would be like Eglin Air Force Base, which is a huge reservation, where they do a lot of military training and stuff. It's literally right up the road from here. Blackwater River, like the author is from right here in Florida. So yeah, he wrote those novels, like very regionally specific. I really like that movie, and not to get into the identity politics part of it, because we've been staying away from it pretty good for a little while, but I will say that it proves to me that audiences don't dislike female characters. Like, we don't have a problem with smart women that are like capable and competent, but like if they would have crammed the entire fucking marketing campaign with this time the ladies are scientists or some shit, it would have been like, shut the fuck up. But it was completely organic to the story, and everybody did really fucking good in it.
It's the Alien approach.
Right. Yes.
Like Ripley was not part of the marketing as a strong female. She was just a character.
Yeah.
And that's how this movie is done. And I've not met anyone who's complained about this being an all-female cast.
No, dude. One of the most shocking scenes, other than the bear scene, is the found footage, the video that they discover. Oh my god, dude.
The Oscar Isaac scene.
Yes. Oh my god, dude. Crazy fucking shit. Crazy. All right. My number 12, The Raid Redemption.
1 or 2?
The first one, Raid Redemption. Yeah. Both of them are great, but that thing, I got to pick one of them. And it's like this. I could have put the John Wick franchise on here because I feel like there's definitely some similarities there. Dread, based on a comic book movie, kind of pre-existing property, franchisey, another movie that kind of has a similar flavor to it. But I really think The Raid is an Indonesian martial arts movie that's impact can be felt all around the world. It was one that Western audiences in particular were like, what the fuck? I hadn't seen a fucking martial arts movie like this since like Rumble in the Bronx or something that had that kind of mainstream appeal and influence. And dude, the hand-to-hand combat is fucking nasty. The
There's
choreography is so awesome.
there's actually some really cool visual effects shots in that too that are so well hidden. Like the scene where he grabs the guy and jumps and hits him on the ground and breaks his neck.
Uh-huh.
That's like an all CG shot. Like not all, but there's like a lot of green screen and all this hidden in that to make it look so real. And you would never know unless you like watch it, the making of it.
Yeah, I had no idea. I would almost assume that all of it was practical and wires and shit. I would like to go
there's
back and see some of that.
really cool green screen, and it's. I agree. I feel like culturally, this movie doesn't get enough credit. Like you said, Dread is this movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like Dread was like, oh, what if we just do Dread, but like the Raid? John Wick pretty much is this movie.
I like its like video game setup also. Like there's no fucking story in the Raid, dude. It's like we got to get to the top of the building, and each level the bosses are going to get a little bit harder. And
there's something nice about them not pretending to be anything greater than they are. I love when films do this. Where they're like, we're not going to say we're anything greater. We know what you're here for.
The Raid 2 tried to give it too much story. I felt like it was a little too bogged down in all of the details, where the first one is just like, we are a martial arts movie, enjoy the fucking ride. So yeah, that was my number 12.
My number 11 is something I just watched, but I watched it 3 times back to back. Joker, directed by Todd Phillips.
All right. You got it all the way to 11. I like that.
Obsessed with this film. This is, ironically, by not being a comic book movie, is the most accurate comic book movie I've ever seen. This has more of a feel of a graphic novel, especially if there's specifically some Joker and some Batman arcs that are very drama focused with no action. And this captures that very well. But removed from all that, it's just a good movie. You said it, and I agree. Heavily influenced by things like Taxi Driver, Natural Born Killers. It's more a drama about mental illness.
Yeah,
it almost has more along the lines of American Psycho than it does a comic book movie.
Sure. Would you say Joaquin Phoenix is the best actor working today? Is he in the top 5?
I think there's an argument for him and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, I mean, he is so impressive. I love Joker. What I have said is I wonder if you pull those foundation movies out from under it, what you're left with. But that's being critical, maybe, and maybe unfairly. But I just, that, like, as somebody who has so much reverence for Martin Scorsese, that's just something that I'm curious about. I like that it was a alternate take on Joker, and as opposed to him being, like I heard somebody else say it, as opposed to him being the hurricane of Gotham City, which is kind of what we know him as, this chaos, embodied. This is more exploration of a broken, lonely, isolated man, and I really like the way that it builds to this crescendo and how he finally gets the opportunity and the national platform to make his fucking joke at the very end of it. I think it was really
visually
well done.
This film is unreal. Like the music and the dancing on the stairs scene, the spinning in the bathroom, the talk show scene. There's just so many just like gems hidden within this film. And in my opinion, as much as I like Joaquin Phoenix, I think this is probably the performance of his career.
I also I gotta respect any filmmaker who is willing to just like put it all on the line. And I feel like this is Todd Phillips very much just saying fuck you to modern society, to the way culture is right now.
When they came after him, like his whole reaction when they were like, "Oh, aren't you appealing to the alt-right?" He's like, "This is a parody of you guys. This is making fun of you." Like he just literally is like, "Fuck you. I'm gonna make what I want." And I respect it.
Yeah, 100%. It's nice to see filmmakers that are willing to stick to their vision, and it's also nice to see Warner Brothers actually have the fucking balls to let them do it, because Warner Brothers has notoriously in the past interfered a lot. Question, trying to stay spoiler free, but what did you think about the alley theater scene at the end of it?
Oh yeah, I liked it.
I felt like it worked for the story.
I felt like it was a little nugget that worked. I feel like if you have no idea about DC lore, you're still its scene still makes sense with the characters that have been set up thus far. I thought it worked.
So my number 11 is The Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black, with Ryan
Great film.
Gosling and Russell Crowe in it. This movie, it's a throwback to those classic quote unquote buddy cop comedy kind of style movies from the 80s and the 90s. It's not really like an action movie, but man, is it fucking funny. And talk about subversion. Like what happens at the end of the second act totally throws the whole movie into a different direction, because it's a noir, and it's very objective driven movie. And then when that objective is no longer relevant, it's endlessly fucking watchable, quotable. The performances and the way the two leads play off of each other, I think is fucking fantastic. So The Nice Guys is one that I think everybody should see.
If you're a fan of 80s buddy cop movies, it's essential watching. Like
For
if
sure.
you love those type, because it definitely is a film of a bygone era.
Yeah.
The last film I feel like that that kind of reminded me of that. It's a movie with Val Kilmer where he plays the gay.
Yeah, it's the other Shane Black movie. It's fucking awesome.
Yes.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yes.
It's so good.
That's like it's literally, I forgot that was Shane Black too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's Lethal Weapon, then those, then this. Like,
Yeah.
if you like it, they don't really make them quite like that anymore.
So we're now coming into our top 10 of the last 10 years, bro. What do you got?
This is where it gets intense. So my number 10 spot is A Prayer Before Dawn. A Prayer Before Dawn is a movie that is about a British boxer, based on true story.
Yes.
A British boxer who goes to prison in Thailand. The thing that works so well for this movie is it's very intense because of the lack of subtitles. It's told all from his perspective. He's a guy who doesn't speak the language, therefore there's really not much subtitles through the whole movie. So you're trying to figure out what these gangsters are saying. A lot of the people in the film are not actors, they are actual prisoners. It is another one of those films that when you're done, you're like, I need to go take a walk. Like,
yeah.
That's intense. And it made me a big fan of this director, which made me search into his other film, which is phenomenal, called Johnny Mad Dog. Not on this list, but I would recommend checking it out. A Prayer Before Dawn is top tier filmmaking.
Joe Cole is the person who plays the lead in it, and I didn't realize that they don't do subtitles in it. So I imagine a lot of it is like you trying to figure out what they're saying as he's trying to figure out what they're saying by their body language, by their tone of voice, all of those kind of things. And I guess it's a movie where this well-known MMA fighter finds salvation in these Thai prisons by becoming a professional fighter for is it for the government? Is it for, like, who watches? Oh, okay. It just happens in the prison.
Yeah. It all takes place in the prison. There's some scenes, like there's rape scenes and all those stuff you expect in prisons that are like hard to watch.
I've been wanting to see this movie, and when you mentioned it to me the other day again, I was like, man, I've been meaning to get around to watching that movie. So that, yeah. My number 10, fucking such a fun theatrical experience. It's a movie that I kind of put on the same level as like Scream, but it's different than that. Also, it's also kind of like The Strangers. More recently, that movie I mentioned, Ready or Not, but it's called You're Next, and it's directed by Adam Wingard. And it is a movie about a family reunion where it is immediately thwarted by some mask-wearing slasher villain characters that come in and start picking the family members off one by one. What they didn't account on is that one of the people, who is not a member of the family, was trained by her father as a survivalist growing up. So she is more than fucking ready to deal with this fucking home invasion in a way that nobody else was expecting. I think this is just a crowd pleaser.
Is it in the same vein of Ready or Not, like a kind of like a comedy, like tongue in cheek, or is it how is it?
Tonally, I would say it's less of a comedy, but it is definitely still a comedy. It is definitely still a comedy. It's just, it's not overtly funny in the same way that Ready or Not is. It's scary at times. It does some really interesting things about halfway through to subvert there's 3 or 4 twists throughout the movie that really fundamentally change what you're watching and how you perceive it. But I think her name is Sharni Vinson, or yeah,
Okay.
and she's the lead in it. She's an Australian actress, and she is fucking fantastic in it. It's badass. Barbara Crampton, you know, fucking old classic scream queen, is in it. But there's these couple of guys. Ty West is actually one of the actors in it. Adam Wingard and Joe something. But the 3 of those guys have been doing, and AJ Bowen, those couple of guys have been doing some really good horror movies over the last 10 to 12 years. They're some of the guys that did the segments on VHS and VHS2 and a lot of the anthology movies. But anyways, I think that You're Next is a movie that horror fans are just going to fucking eat up.
Definitely sounds like one. Yeah, I hadn't even really aware of it. My number 9 is a movie I got confused about and shit all over at first, but I absolutely love. My number 9 is Blind Spotting.
Oh yeah, Blindside, the one with Sandra Bullock. Love it.
Yeah, Blind Spotting is like I said, we don't need to go into it. It's one of the smartest movies I've seen about race, the most fair movies I've seen about police violence. It's all around. It's funny. It's moving. It's the rapping scenes work. I can't rave about this enough, especially if you're someone who grew up kind of in the hood. I think there's even an extra layer to
Yes.
appreciate here.
Yeah.
And especially like I related to Miles, the main character, a white guy in the hood,
Yeah.
trying to be accepted. There's just so much to unpack here. There's a reason it's in my top 10 of the decade.
The way it explores gentrification, I think, is really interesting.
Yes.
And yeah, like your preconceived ideas about racial stereotypes are subverted and then subverted again. Yeah, couldn't speak highly enough about that movie as well. My number 9 is one that you mentioned earlier, and that is Drive. And I think Drive is a movie that just oozes with atmosphere. It is such a movie of sight and sound and senses and immersion, and it's fucking cool. Like, cool is one of the best words I can come up with, you know?
It's like a 9 out of 10 film. Like, even though it was lower on my list, that's the thing about this list, is like these are all such good movies.
Yeah.
And Drive is it's honestly so good. Like, me and my brother were talking about films of the decade, and that was his number 1. And I was like, I can't argue with it. Like, it's a damn good movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
My number, what number? We're on
8.
number 8. My number 8 is Life of Pi, directed by Ang Lee.
I'm surprised that's that high on your list.
Love this film.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie, and the thing so it's a CG, like, just everything's blue screen. But the thing that really sold me on a visual point is he does not go for realism. It is a fairy tale, the whole movie. It reminded me of a movie called The Fall. I don't know if you've ever seen The Fall from years back.
No.
It's a great exploration of humanity and what someone will do to survive and do the human psyche while being a fantasy film, but that's not really what it's about. Visually, there are some shots that are just breathtaking in it. The writing is phenomenal. Like, I hadn't seen this film until recently because I had no desire to, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to check it out. I was so pleasantly surprised of me to enjoy not only this film but this style of film. Like, it's breathtaking. I also think Ang Lee is an incredible director. He's very hit or miss, but when he goes for something, he goes, and I respect that so much.
I think the relationship between him and the tiger is obviously one of the strongest elements of the movie. And then visually, when all of the whales show up, I mean, like, dude, there are so many great shots in it. And maybe I've dismissed it because it's been so long since I've seen it. Maybe I should go back and revisit that one, because I do remember very much enjoying it. So, Life of Pi.
I think visually, from what you like, some of the stuff visually you like, I think you would probably enjoy it more now.
And let's go in a totally different direction as far as feeling and tone. And my number 8 is the Korean film I Saw the Devil.
Oh, great film. Weird film.
Fucking crazy, dude. God, it is a lot. It is a lot, and it just keeps adding layers to, like, it's a lot. There's some of the secondary characters that come in halfway through the movie. You're just like, are you fucking serious? But one of my favorite, it's a meditation on what is justice, what is revenge. Is there really any way to, like, right the wrongs of somebody who's committed atrocities against somebody you love? This idea of like a special ops guy that he implants a tracker on a serial killer so that instead of arresting him and putting the man behind bars for the rest of his life, he can anticipate him going out and finding him before he commits this crime and just repeatedly go in and torture him fucking over and over again, enabling him to continue to carry out this fucking reign of terror. And then there's like cannibalism in it. But one of my favorite shots in any fucking horror movie, but is the stabbing scene that takes place inside the car.
It's very brutal.
It's very brutal. It's doing like this 360 fucking turn. I don't know how the camera was able to get in there and do all of that.
It reminds me of a shot of a movie that we didn't discuss. It's a movie that John Wick stole a lot of its. John Wick 3 specifically stole some of its action scenes directly from, called The Villainous. There's a fight scene in a bus that is just going underneath legs and around people, and you're like, how? I don't even understand how this works.
Dude, so I Saw the Devil, not going to be for everybody, but definitely one that when I saw it, I was just floored by it.
I feel like I Saw the Devil is a love it or hate it film.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of fell somewhere in between, but I think it's an absolutely great entry into the list.
All right, number 7. What you got?
Number 7 is another Denis Villeneuve film, Arrival.
Yeah, so good.
I love this movie. And you got Forrest Whitaker, you got Jeremy Renner, Amy Adams. Like, it's just such a phenomenal cast. It is one of the more interesting alien films I've seen in years. It's very old sci-fi, very like hard sci-fi. Not as much of a, like, there's no action in this film. It has some, I don't want to bury the lead to the end of the film, but there's some interesting takes with reality and perception that are just, it's as close to a perfect film as you can get, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that it's more of a focus on just the power of communication and how tribally we're so quick to identify the other as the enemy just to protect and preserve our own safety, our own people, and how much communication can bridge that gap and make us realize how similar we all really are. I think that's one of the more interesting concepts of Arrival, and not just the communication, but the actual way that it explores language itself. It's a very smart movie. The designs of the aliens are at one moment can be seen as menacing, at other they're just like biological organisms. There are so many amazing shots in that movie, in particular when they're first boarding the alien vessel,
the gravity shot.
Yeah, dude, it is
beautiful
movie. Could have easily made its way onto my top 10 list. So yeah, I think that's a great choice. Number 7 for me, was that your number 7?
Yep.
Number 7 for me is another personal pick that I don't know that how many people have actually seen it. It's a little found footage movie called Creep with Mark Duplass in it.
Great film.
You seen it?
Yeah, I love this movie.
It's another one. I like movies that play with tones. I like movies that don't exist firmly in one realm or another. And this is a comedy that you just never know where things are headed. You cannot get a good read off of your main character, and that's something that I find endlessly watchable. Mark Duplass is a talented actor. He's also been responsible for writing some really intelligent stuff, but to see the amount of fun that he's having portraying this fucking character is very watchable. And then once you get the revelation at the end, it's completely shocking. It also completely makes sense. And there's a sequel to it. I think you can stream both of them on Netflix. Creep 2 works extremely well. Also but you already kind of know what's
What's
going
going on?
on behind the scenes. So yeah,
So
but
yeah,
both
I
are
knew
good.
there was a Creep 2. I haven't seen it. Is it worth, if you're a fan of the first, is it Creep 2 worth checking out?
Highly watchable, better in some ways. I fucking think
Okay.
it's fantastic, dude. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
My number 6 is another Alex Garland film because I did not stick to the director role.
No, 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 that was something I came up with.
Is his only other film, Ex Machina. This is, in my opinion, Oscar Isaac's best performance, which is saying a lot
Oh,
because
dude,
he's phenomenal in everything.
the dance scene
The
alone.
dance scene is it's tonally unsettling. There's funny moments. It's just a impeccably made film. Some of the best special effects I've ever seen. That they do as far as the android's concerned.
Uh-huh.
Again, another thing that plays with love, what's real, what is humanity, and it's uncomfortable to watch in the best possible way.
Gender roles,
Gender roles.
the sense of self-preservation. It's immaculately framed and shot. The set design is so minimalist and modern and intelligent, and it plays a lot with our expectations of what we think about with
Yes.
traditional love, and for those of you guys that haven't seen it, Domhnall Gleeson is a computer code developer who gets called to this really eccentric billionaire played by Oscar Isaac's house to basically see if his android can pass the Turing test, and he starts to develop maybe a relationship with the robot, and things progress from there. And I think Oscar Isaac in some ways kind of represents that very kind of toxic masculinity. Are women more objects to be thrown away? And then you see Domhnall Gleeson as this more sweet, kind of empathetic person. And what is that really worth in the greater scheme of things? I think it plays with a lot of tropes, and I feel like it's very Hitchcockian in a lot of ways. But
Very, very.
yeah, dude. Actually, that is number 4 on my list. So that
Okay.
takes care of our conversation on that. Number 6 for me is another movie that I just find incredibly fun and rewarding for horror fans, and in a way, it can kind of canonically fit every horror movie into the same movie. Cabin in the Woods is a fucking trip, dude. I love this movie.
Cabin in the Woods, even though I don't like not a fan of it really, I love that it knows what it is and it doesn't try to be anything more than what it is. And I kind of appreciate, like I said, I appreciate films that do that.
It doesn't reveal the whole mystery to you at the end. Throughout it, you know that there's something going on. It drops clues that you're like, okay, everything's not what it appears to be. But I love the meta way that it uses all of the people working at that particular corporation as surrogates for the audience, and giving the people what they want. And then, oh, well, now it's just down to America and Japan. Don't worry, Japan usually are the ones that do it the best, but we're second because we try harder. And it's just like so much meta commentary on horror filmmaking. The fucking monster mash at the end when they open up all of the little glass cases and
everything. Yeah.
Dude, it's just fun. It's not a
It's a love letter to horror film. If you're a diehard horror fan, it's one of those things. If you're not a diehard horror fan, you're gonna hate this movie.
Yeah, you'd be like, what the fuck is this?
You're gonna be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But if you are, there is definitely something that there is something there for you if you're a diehard horror fan, which I would say you're definitely a bigger horror fan than I am.
It's a tricky marketing act to pull, because when you try to sell a movie called Cabin in the Woods, genre fans are going to be like, oh God, another one of these fucking movies. And then people who want a straightforward horror movie, they're like, oh, Cabin in the Woods, that sounds awesome. They're going to go in it and be like, this movie's making fun of me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of a tricky thing, but yes, I love it.
It's one of those ones I probably should go back and watch. I saw it when it came out and I was like, it's okay. But I think maybe now with my modern sensibilities, I might appreciate it a lot more.
You might not. It's very Joss Whedon-y. A lot of that stupid, snarky dialogue and all that shit. But yeah, it worked for me. I had a lot of fun with that one. So now we're coming down to the number 5. Boy, what you got?
So my number 5 is The Skin I Live In, directed by
God,
Pedro Almodovar, starring Antonio Banderas.
you have told me about this one lately. I remember when it first came out being so enthusiastic about seeing it, and I still haven't.
This for me is, like I said, there's uncomfortable watches. This is the most disturbing film on this entire list for me.
Really?
It there's nothing scary. It's a horror film. I always saw it on like top horror lists, and I was like, while watching, you're like, this isn't a horror film. Like, not really.
Is it a
You-
comedy also?
There's some scenes, but it definitely has the most disturbing ending of anything I've seen.
All right.
I literally like, my wife wasn't as disturbed by it as I was. She's like, yeah, it's weird, but I literally had felt like puking afterwards. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
this is fucked up. And it's definitely an ending I didn't really see coming, which is nice. I hate when I watch a movie and I'm like halfway through, I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. It wasn't until they wanted me to know what happened that I knew what happened. The Antonio Banderas is phenomenal in it. The girl, let me pick her name. She is great in as well. Alana Anaya. I don't know what else she's been in, but she is phenomenal in it. It's uncomfortable. Is probably the best. I put it in the same vein as Takashi Miike's Audition,
Oh, wow.
but for me, more uncomfortable.
So I can either rent it on Prime for $2.99. It looks like that's the only choice I got. I gotta see this movie, man. I've been wanting to watch it for a very long time. I don't know what else is coming up on your list, but would you say that you like it more or less than Killing of a Sacred Deer?
Way more. Killing of Sacred Deer didn't even make my list.
Okay. I wasn't sure
Have you
about
seen
that.
Killing of Sacred Deer?
No, but
I
I
saw it
wanted to.
opening day. It's all right.
I saw The Favorite. That's the only one of his movies that I've seen.
Yeah, I saw it opening day. I can understand why people like it. It's okay.
I didn't see The Lobster. Did you see The Lobster?
No,
Okay.
Killing of Sacred Deer is the only one I saw. I saw it in an empty theater with just me.
By yourself.
Opening day.
That was pretty much me at The Favorite. All right, my number 5 is, and this is one that I need to go back and revisit because it's been a long time since I've seen it. But God, I always remember raving about it and thinking it was so badass because people have, for a long time, slept on Ben Affleck. They've disrespected him as an actor. They've said he was just the talentless one behind Good Will Hunting and that Matt Damon was the fucking man and that Ben Affleck was kind of the dummy. The Town is such a good fucking crime movie, man. It's like
The Town is solid.
It's super solid. I also really like Gone Baby Gone. I think it's debatable as to which one was maybe a quote unquote better film, but I love Jeremy Renner in The Town. I think that he's a very like menacing presence and just like the heist scenes are super well executed. It felt a lot like Michael Mann's Heat. Obviously little elements of Point Break, but I felt like directorially it was closer to Heat than a lot of the other ones. But I like a good crime thriller, and I think that this one was able to do almost like what was that one with was it called Juice? What was the one where Tupac? Yeah, ends up like going crazy as the night goes on. I think it's Juice.
I think it's Juice.
Yeah, this kind of has a similar vibe to that, where there's like the one person in the group that's like, at all costs, they're gonna fucking make this happen, no matter like what else goes wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I really like The Town.
Also, Ben Affleck's one of those people, kind of like Robert Pattinson. When people go, "Oh, he's a bad actor," I'm like, you obviously haven't watched more than a couple of movies.
Yeah, most
Because
of the people that hate Robert Pattinson haven't even seen Twilight.
Yeah, or they have, and those are bad movies, but they're bad movies. I wouldn't want to judge my whole catalog off my one bad movie.
Yeah, no doubt.
My number 4 is Isle of Dogs, directed by Wes Anderson. Isle of Dogs is, for me, visually one of the most unbelievable films. I'm so happy I saw this in theaters. The neuroticism with symmetry that you find in Wes Anderson films is taken up an entire new notch. For me, this is by far the best Wes Anderson film. Again, not a story movie, but more of a tone and a visual aesthetic. This movie just works for me on every level.
When you said I love dogs, to me, one of the last times we talked about this movie was the first time I'd ever even considered it. I heard Isle of Dogs. I never heard
Yeah.
it as anything but Isle of Dogs. And then when you're like, yeah, I love dogs, I was like, oh, that actually fucking makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Isle of Dogs is amazing.
So I just mentioned earlier I wasn't going to talk a lot about franchise movies, but I did want to mention there was a couple of animated movies that came out that I really liked over the past couple of years. Zootopia I thought was really fucking good, and then I also thought Moana and Coco both were very, very good for animated movies.
The How to Train Your Dragon franchise almost made my list.
How to Train Your Dragon Christmas special was pretty good. I watched that on Hulu a couple days
Dude,
ago.
they're great. Yeah. So, did you ever see Isle of Dogs?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to.
Did you like Fantastic Mr. Fox?
Yeah, but not not a whole lot.
So I think you will like Isle of Dogs better. I think it's a again, it's not a story film. It's just aesthetically beautiful.
Yeah, and I really respect Wes Anderson on that level. He's a very revered filmmaker that I am a little more hit or miss with.
I agree. Like everyone loved Moonrise Kingdom. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was as great as everyone said it was.
Yeah, I'm a Royal Tenenbaums and Bottle Rocket purist, and past that, I'm like, yeah, they're all right.
I do like Grand Budapest.
Yeah, that one's good too. And oh, dude, and Life Aquatic's good. He's good.
What?
He's good. It's just a different
me,
thing.
I think we're kind of in the same boat on him. I don't think everything he makes is a masterpiece either.
So,
this is the one where I do feel it is.
So my number 4 was Ex Machina. I think we both kind of hit on the reasons why that one's great. What's your number 3?
Yeah, also Ex Machina, again, if you haven't seen it, phenomenal. Easily worthy of top 5.
Hard sci-fi.
My number 3 is directed by Stephen Knight, starring Tom Hardy, Locke.
Man, I hadn't seen that one yet.
Locke is a movie about Tom Hardy driving in a car, talking on a cell phone. There are no shots outside of the car. It is all inside this car. I think you might see a couple like passing shots, but it is a pretty much a one-man show. He's the only person you ever see on camera. The rest of it is all done through speakerphone on his Bluetooth car. It is one of the most intense films I've seen in a long time. It shows you that you can do a lot with very, very little if you're a smart filmmaker. And it has some of the most realistic human interactions I've seen in the decade. And it's a movie that stuck with me long after I watched it.
Would you say it's suspense thriller as the genre?
More drama.
Okay.
Kind of. Yeah, more drama.
I've been wanting to watch that one.
It's not for everyone. I could see people walking away going, I hate this movie. It's just a guy talking on a cell phone. I thought it worked. I felt like it was brave and bold by being so little. And Tom Hardy is a great actor. I think, like, besides all his like bigger budget movies, he can actually act.
Oh yeah. My number 3 is one that you and I have had regular contention about. I think you've acknowledged that it's a well-made film. I think Hereditary is.
I knew
impeccable.
It had to be coming up because it wasn't on your list.
Yeah. This is my number 3 of the last decade. Subversion is one thing, subversive is another thing, and this movie did things in it that I thought were absolutely shocking, and that's coming from somebody who's seen, like you mentioned, Audition, Cannibal Holocaust, like any of the notoriously dark movies that you could watch. And I think Hereditary explores grief and mental illness and the closeness yet distance that we can have with family and dysfunction, and the way that not dealing with things will let them bubble to the surface and in unhealthy ways. I like that it deals with the occult, and it just, to me, it is one of the darkest satire comedy kind of movies that I've ever seen. And Midsummer is a perfect companion piece
I would agree with that.
to Hereditary in that they are both sides of the same coin, but I feel like Hereditary slightly edges it out because Alex Wolff's performance and Toni Collette's performances are both, I felt, Oscar worthy, and neither of them got the nomination because the Academy hates horror movies.
As someone who honestly, I really dislike this movie. There's things that I do love about it. The opening shot of the dollhouse is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
it's perfect. Like, it drew me in right away. I said it before. It has my second favorite scene of the entire decade, which is the car ride scene. I won't spoil it. Love that scene. I feel like it works better as a family drama about mental illness. Kind of fails on the horror film side. And I think all this hype of hearing how scary it was, and then I wasn't even remotely disturbed through it, I think is where my disconnect comes from.
Is that where it lost you in the third act after Alex Wolff's character wakes up?
No, it lost me pretty early on, pretty much after the car scene, like about the halfway point.
Okay.
I loved everything up until then, until I got to a point I'm like, and also too, I figured out the beginning, I figured out the end of the film in the opening scene, and that really, sometimes when you're waiting for a movie to catch up with what's going to happen, it does give you that disconnect.
That's interesting because Midsommar literally shows you what's going to happen in the beginning of the movie.
I agree, but it doesn't hide it as a plot twist.
Right. No, 100%. I don't know if maybe that was a lesson learned kind of thing, but
I think so. I like Midsommar better.
Keep an eye on Ari Aster. I have a feeling this guy's going places.
He could be one of the directors of our generation. I really believe that with him. And even though I shit on this film, I totally get it. Why people would love it.
Number 2, man. What you got?
Number 2, Django Unchained.
Oh, shit.
I think this is Quentin Tarantino's best film. I think this is Christoph Waltz's best film. And I think this is Leonardo DiCaprio's best film.
Wow.
And probably Kerry Washington and Samuel L. Jackson's best film. Like, it is just oozing Quentin Tarantino style. There's some really intense moments that pull at your heartstrings about slavery. There's also some really funny moments. The scene where he's riding and Rick Ross's song is playing and you see his wife in the yellow dress is just visually beautiful. To me, this is Quentin Tarantino going balls to the wall, saying he's doing exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah, this is one of the 3 of Quentin Tarantino's like revisionist history movies. There's this one, there's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and there's Inglourious Basterds. And I literally could have gone any direction with those and felt pretty good about it. Inglourious Basterds has such a strong opening.
Oh, it's so good.
I chose Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for my number 2 entry.
Still haven't seen it.
And Quentin Tarantino, for most of you guys probably know, Quentin Tarantino is my favorite filmmaker. I don't think I'm alone in that. We're all kids of the 90s, and I think he was, one of the biggest contributing voices to what cinema became, that resurgence of independent movies. A lot of it can be traced back to him. And I tend to agree with a lot of people who feel like Quentin Tarantino's best work is his more recent catalog. Like, I love Reservoir Dogs. Pulp Fiction, for many years, I would say was my favorite movie. And at this point, I feel like Inglourious Basterds and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are my 2 favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. I don't want to ruin Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but as you know, it stars Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. Brad Pitt is DiCaprio's stuntman. DiCaprio's an aging star who's kind of starting to lose relevance and goes over to Italy to start doing spaghetti westerns and is trying to just reconcile with the fact that he's aging out of being able to be cast as the leading man in movies and stuff. But it's a buddy movie. The relationship between those 2 characters is awesome, and then there's this whole side plot of the Manson family cult kind of coming into town and the effects that has on Hollywood, the hippie movement, history, cinema, all of that shit in general. And it just feels like, and for somebody who all his movies are kind of a love letter to movies, this feels like his biggest love letter to Hollywood as an institution. I really liked it.
I bought it already. The only reason I haven't watched it, I wanted to watch it before this conversation, was my brother made me promise that I wouldn't watch it without him because he's just like you and me. Like Quentin Tarantino is a god to this man. And it was hard. He was kind of the one director where I did take only one because I didn't want my whole list to be,
Yeah.
Inglourious Basterds. Like all of those are worthy of this list.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
So I think we might have the same number one just because you haven't mentioned this director.
Yeah, I mean it's obvious. I think anybody that has actually listened to our podcast knows.
So I'll let you go then. What is your number one?
Blade Runner 2049.
Absolutely. Amen. That's my number one as well.
So I mean, we got a minute. Let's talk about it. What is it in particular about Blade Runner 2049 that puts it at the top of your list of movies of the decade?
So first of all, I hadn't seen this since I saw it in theaters until my dad is a big Blade Runner fan. I forced him to watch it while he's up here. I'm like, you're watching this movie. He loved it as well. So this is as much a Roger Deakins film as it is a Nanny Villeneuve film.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. Maybe even more, if I'm being honest. I love Roger Deakins in this movie. This tonally is perfect. Visually is perfect. It's a slow burn that I understand a lot of people not liking. It has a bizarre third act with very little action. It's one of those few films where you can pause at any point in time and it looks like a painting. Like every frame looks like a shot you could hang on your wall. And the amount of detail that goes into this film, the amount of character building with subtlety that goes in this film is breathtaking. Again, plays into the whole thing of what is love, what is humanity, what is life. The scene with the memory maker, I won't spoil it, but the first time you see a scene with the memory maker, it's the first scene of true color you see in the film.
Mm-hmm.
It made me tear up because I was watching the movie and this movie's so dark and drab that all of a sudden there's this beautiful scene right in the middle of the movie. And visually, it did something that ties into the story later that I didn't realize while watching it. It does like take your breath away to finally have a little bit of hope in this otherwise depressing film.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you said. I feel like you and I talk a bit about color grading, and this is a movie that really utilizes that to the fullest. I feel like the concept art for the film itself has to be some of the most impressive to look at shit. I like how they use the legacy character, but if I'm being honest, I could have went without, that
I agree.
chunk of it. I get why they did it. I really like Jared Leto's character. I really like how they play up certain attributes that may make you perceive him one way, only to figure out he's not. And then we've got these very human characters on the other end of the spectrum that are they actually have the humanity, or is that just part of their programming? It shows us Dave Bautista's ability to actually tap into some sort of pathos that we've never really seen a wrestler be able to do. I've certainly never seen Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson do something like that with so little love the character. She's so fascinating because of the links that she's willing to go to just kind of be acknowledged by her creator. You mentioned Prometheus, way earlier on in this discussion, and there's this idea about, wanting answers and wanting those answers to be fulfilling and to add meaning to your life, but then realizing how cynical the nature of creation is. Like you look at Frankenstein or something like that, it's a very poignant thematic trope. I think that what Blade Runner 2049 does really well is build that atmosphere. That thing that I want to do when I go to the movies is, some people call it escapism. I would consider it more immersion, especially in this situation, because a lot of it does hit home in some really powerful ways, but it puts you in this world. And people that complained about the runtime, I'm like, nah, I would have spent another 30 minutes in that world. I find Joy to be one of the most likable elements in the movie. I thought it was heartbreaking what happens to her. Ryan Gosling, he does, like, if I found out that Ryan Gosling was a replicant in Drive, it would have actually made a lot of fucking sense. You know what I mean? So he does this
silent,
character so
emotionless
well.
very well.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And it lets you know real early on where his character's coming from. I love this movie. I've seen it a bunch. When I first got my big TV and could stream it in 4K, I had it on for 2 days or something like that. I saw it in the theater the one time, and then it had been a little while. But upon rewatching it, and dude, I love that set piece at the end when they're at like the dam and the water's coming in, and it's
one of my favorite third acts of any movie. One of my favorite final conclusions of any film,
because it goes the other way with it. Like, it could have so easily been some big sky battle and fucking shit blowing up and all of that, but no, that's not the story that they're telling here.
It's weird for a movie with this big of budget and this big of spectacle to also show so much restraint.
Yes.
And that's a hard line to walk. Like, usually when someone's doing this big of a sci-fi epic, there's no restraint, and there's this giant multi-$100 million film that feels like a small low budget indie film all at the same time. And for me, by far, Denis Villeneuve's best thing, and you can see I had everything but Sicario on the list, and the score is phenomenal.
Oh my God, dude! There's like, it's Johan Johansson, Hans Zimmer, and somebody else, and they create this fucking such a lush soundscape that sometimes it's overwhelming. But it's supposed to be like, it's all so cerebral and like
it's not even almost music at times.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yes. And it's so perfect. And I think the best thing about it is that it completely bombed at the box office. So we'll never see another brave fucking science fiction movie on this scale again in the theaters, unless Dune ends up coming out and fucking killing it.
I think Dune is going to be his last sci-fi film. I think he's going to come out, put something very similar out. It's going to financially be a huge financial tank, which is a shame. But then we'll get back to his smaller films like Incendies and all those other movies, which I'm fine with. I mean, he does excellent work. For me, while doing this list, Blade Runner 2049 could be a contender for my favorite film of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like, I don't know if I can think of another one that dethrones it. Like, it's just perfect.
I'm curious what other people think about this movie in particular, but about all of the list. Guys, if you want to take a minute, come up with your own top 20 list, leave it down in the comments section. But you don't got to do that. You can leave your top 10 or just kind of comment on the ones that we've discussed. Let us know if you agree or disagree with some of the ones that we have included in this conversation. We are recording this right here at the end of December, so if we don't hear from you beforehand, make sure that you have a happy new year and a happy 2020. Be sure to stick around and subscribe because we're going to have plenty more content coming out this next year. Caleb, here's to another fucking year, man. It's been a pleasure, and it's always
been a pleasure,
fun.
Man. Happy New Year, man. And what a great decade for films when going back and looking at it.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And we took so many of the popcorn ones out of the equation, and we're still able to make a pretty compelling case that everything's not reboots, everything's not franchises, everything's not sequels. You just got to dig a little bit deeper.
You know what's also amazing too, when you take out like the big budget and popcorn films, how similar of taste we have when you take out all the other things. Like, that's really our thing where we disagree on is superhero films.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Like, everything else, our looks were pretty similar.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for coming by. If you enjoyed it, click the like button. Caleb, it's been fun. And most importantly, until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.